Welcome, dear dreamer, to another gentle voyage with the Sleepy Professor. Tonight, we'll drift together through the most extraordinary universe you'll ever encounter, one that exists entirely within the quiet sanctuary of your chest. As you settle into whatever cozy corner of the world has claimed you tonight, perhaps wrapped in soft blankets or nestled against familiar pillows, know that you're about to explore a cosmos more intricate than the furthest galaxy, yet small enough to cradle in your hands. Before we begin our sleepy expedition, I'm curious, where in this vast world are you joining me from? Are you watching city lights twinkle through a window, or perhaps listening to rain paint gentle rhythms against glass? Wherever you are, you're welcome here in this quiet space where science becomes poetry and knowledge flows like a lullaby. If this gentle journey through the heart brings you comfort, I'd be grateful if you'd tap that like button and consider subscribing. It's a small gesture that helps these sleepy scientific stories reach other curious minds seeking rest. And if you're already part of our drowsy community of dreamers and thinkers, thank you for returning. Don't forget to ring that notification bell though. I promise to keep it as soft as a whisper. Now, let me offer you a thought to hold as we begin, like a smooth stone to turn over in your mind. How does this small muscular organ, no larger than your closed fist, somehow pump the river of life through thousands of miles of vessels every single day of your existence? How does this gentle drum beating in the darkness of your chest somehow power the entire orchestra of your being? Tonight's expedition requires no effort from you. Simply let these words wash over you like waves on a distant shore. If your eyelids grow heavy, let them fall. If your thoughts begin to wander, let them roam. The heart we're exploring tonight is remarkably forgiving. It will continue its quiet work, whether you're listening intently or drifting toward dreams. A gentle note of care. This journey is crafted for wonder and rest, not medical advice. If you have concerns about your heart or health, please seek guidance from qualified healthcare professionals who can offer the specific care you deserve. The eternal rhythm. Imagine, if you will, a muscular chamber about the size of your fist, nestled between your lungs like a precious jewel cradled in velvet. This is your heart, a four-chambered marvel that has been beating steadily since you were no larger than a poppy seed, faithfully keeping time with the rhythm of your existence. It began its work when you were still curled in the warm darkness of the womb, and it will continue its patient drumbeat until your very last moment on earth. This remarkable organ weighs only about 10 ounces, roughly the same as a large apple, yet it possesses a strength and endurance that puts the most advanced machines to shame. While industrial pumps require regular maintenance and eventual replacement, your heart has been operating continuously since before you took your first breath, without a single pause for repair, without a moment's rest to recover from its labors. Right now, as you listen to these words, your heart is performing one of the most elegant dances in all of biology. It squeezes and releases, in a rhythm so reliable that you've learned to take it completely for granted. Yet this simple motion contraction and relaxation powers the most sophisticated circulation system ever evolved, sending your blood on a complete journey through your entire body and back again every 60 seconds. The journey your blood takes is nothing short of miraculous. From your heart, it travels to the crown of your head, nourishing the intricate folds of your brain. It descends to your fingertips, warming them even on the coldest days. It flows through your kidneys, your liver, your intestines, supporting digestion and detoxification. It reaches the smallest capillaries in your toes, delivering oxygen to cells that may be 4 feet away from your heart. And then, gathering the waste products of metabolism, it returns home to begin the journey again. Your heart began its remarkable journey as a tiny tube, smaller than the smallest rice grain, when you were still an embryo. In the 3rd week of your development, this humble tube began to beat your first heartbeat, occurring before your mother even knew she was carrying you. This moment, occurring sometime around day 21 or 22 of gestation, marks one of the most profound transitions in human development. The moment when a cluster of cells becomes a being with its own internal rhythm, its own pulse of life. Over the following weeks, this simple tube folded and twisted and divided itself into the four-chambered masterpiece that now keeps you alive. The transformation is like watching origami. At the cellular level. The tube loops back on itself, creating bulges and chambers, then divides down the middle to create left and right sides. Valves form from delicate folds of tissue. The great vessels, aorta, and pulmonary arteries emerge and position themselves precisely. By the time you drew your first breath, your heart had already been working tirelessly for months, preparing to sustain you through a lifetime of love, laughter, tears, and dreams. Consider the mathematics of your heart's devotion. In an average lifetime, your heart will beat approximately 2.5 billion times each beat, a small miracle of muscular coordination. That's roughly 100,000 beats per day, 3 million beats per month, 35 million beats per year. If you live to be 80 years old, your heart will have contracted and relaxed 2.8 billion times, never once complaining, never once requesting relief. It will pump roughly 1.5 million barrels of blood, enough to fill more than 200 train cars. To put this in perspective, that's approximately 1 million gallons of blood circulated through your body each year, enough to fill a small swimming pool. Over a lifetime, your heart will pump enough blood to fill more than 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools. If you lined up all the blood vessels in your body, end to end, they would stretch for about 60,000 miles, enough to circle the Earth 2.5 times. Yet your heart sends blood flowing through this vast network of tubes so efficiently that blood can complete the entire circuit in less than a minute. Think about what this means right now. Blood that is leaving your heart will visit your brain, travel down to your toes, stop by your kidneys and liver, nourish the muscles in your arms, and return to your heart, all in the time it takes to read a single paragraph. This extraordinary efficiency is achieved through precise coordination of pressure, flow, and timing that would challenge the most sophisticated computer systems. Picture your heart as it exists right now in the soft darkness of your chest cavity. It's surrounded by a protective membrane called the pericardium, a silky sac that cushions your heart and allows it to beat smoothly without friction against your ribs and lungs. This pericardial sac contains a small amount of lubricating fluid, just a few teaspoons, that acts like the oil in an engine, allowing the heart to glide and slide with each contraction without any roughness or catching. The pericardium itself is composed of 2 layers, a tough outer layer that anchors your heart in place within your chest, and an inner layer that adheres to the heart muscle itself. Between these layers lies the pericardial space, that thin realm of lubricating fluid that makes possible the heart's effortless motion. This design is so elegant that your heart can beat 100,000 times a day, every day for decades, without wearing through this protective sheath. Inside this protective embrace, your heart sits slightly tilted to the left, its apex pointing down like a gentle arrow directing the flow of life through your body. This leftward tilt is why you can often feel your heartbeat more strongly on the left side of your chest. Even though your heart actually occupies a central position, the apex of your heart, the pointed lower tip, rests just above your diaphragm, that great dome of muscle that powers your breathing. With each breath you take, your diaphragm descends slightly, gently massaging the bottom of your heart, creating a subtle but beneficial mechanical interaction between these 2 vital organs. Your heart is not simply one organ, but 2 synchronized pumps working side by side, separated by a muscular wall called the septum. This arrangement is sometimes called a double pump, and it represents one of evolution's most clever solutions to the challenge of oxygenating blood while simultaneously distributing it throughout the body. The right side of your heart receives blood that has traveled through your body and become depleted of oxygen blood that appears dark red or almost purple in color, like the deep garnet color of aged wine. This tired blood flows into your right atrium, a receiving chamber that gathers the returning circulation like a gentle harbor welcoming ships home from their journey. The right atrium is relatively thin-walled, as its job requires only gentle pressure to move blood the short distance to the right ventricle. The walls of this chamber stretch and expand to accommodate varying amounts of returning blood, adjusting smoothly to changes in your activity level and body position. From the right atrium, blood flows down through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle, the muscular pump that will send this oxygen-poor blood on the short journey to your lungs for renewal. The tricuspid valve so named because it has 3 cusps or flaps opens downward when pressure in the atrium exceeds pressure in the ventricle, allowing blood to pour through like water through a one-way gate. Fibrous cords called chordae tendineae anchor the valve flaps to the ventricular walls, preventing them from flipping backward when the ventricle contracts, like guide ropes that keep a tent taut in the wind. The right ventricle has a unique shape, somewhat crescent-like when viewed in cross-section, wrapping partially around the more muscular left ventricle. Its walls are moderately thick, strong enough to pump blood to the lungs, but not so thick that they require excessive oxygen themselves. When the right ventricle contracts, it generates just enough pressure to send blood through the pulmonary arteries to the intricate capillary networks in your lungs, where the sacred exchange of gases will occur. Meanwhile, the left side of your heart performs an equally essential but opposite function. It receives bright red, oxygen-rich blood, returning from your lungs' blood, that has been refreshed and recharged like batteries that have been plugged into a power source. This blood appears bright scarlet, almost crimson, carrying within it the gift of oxygen bound to hemoglobin molecules, ready to deliver life-sustaining gas to waiting tissues throughout your body. This revitalized blood collects in your left atrium before flowing through the mitral valve into your left ventricle, the strongest chamber of your heart. The mitral valve, unlike its tricuspid cousin, has only 2 cusps, giving it a shape reminiscent of a bishop's mitre, from which it derives its name. This valve must withstand tremendous pressure differences as the powerful left ventricle contracts, yet it opens and closes with perfect reliability, never jamming, never wearing out prematurely. The left ventricle's thick, powerful walls must generate enough pressure to send blood on the long journey through your entire body, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. These walls are approximately 3 times thicker than those of the right ventricle, packed with layers of cardiac muscle arranged in a complex spiral pattern that allows for maximum force generation with each contraction. When you measure blood pressure, the higher number systolic pressure reflects the force generated by this powerful left ventricular contraction. The left ventricle is shaped like a bullet, or an elongated cone, a design that optimizes the ejection of blood into the aorta. Its internal volume changes dramatically between relaxation and contraction from about 120 milliliters when fully relaxed to about 50 milliliters after contraction, meaning it ejects approximately 70 milliliters of blood with each beat. This stroke volume, multiplied by your heart rate, gives your cardiac output the total amount of blood your heart pumps per minute, typically about 5 liters at rest, but capable of increasing to 20 or even 30 liters per minute during intense exercise. The valves of your heart deserve special recognition for their quiet, essential work. Like perfectly designed doors that open only in the right direction, your heart valves ensure that blood flows in a single purposeful direction through your circulation. These structures are marvels of biological engineering, combining strength with flexibility, durability with delicacy. The tricuspid valve guards the entrance from your right atrium to your right ventricle, its 3 cusps meeting in the center like petals of a flower closing at night. When the right ventricle relaxes, pressure drops below atrial pressure, and the valve cusps fall open, allowing blood to fill the chamber. When the ventricle contracts, pressure rises rapidly, forcing the cusps together and preventing any backflow into the atrium. The pulmonary valve controls the exit from your right ventricle to your lungs. Unlike the tricuspid and mitral valves, the pulmonary valve has 3 symmetrical cusps arranged in a circular pattern, looking somewhat like the iris of a camera lens when closed. This valve opens when right ventricular pressure exceeds pulmonary artery pressure, then snaps shut the moment contraction ends, preventing blood from flowing backward from the pulmonary arteries into the ventricle. The mitral valve manages the flow from your left atrium to your left ventricle, its 2 cusps creating a larger opening that allows for rapid filling of the powerful left ventricle. This valve handles the highest pressure differences of any valve in your heart, yet it performs flawlessly billions of times throughout your life. The anterior cusp is larger, like a curtain drawn across a stage, while the posterior cusp is smaller and more segmented. The mighty aortic valve opens to allow blood to rush out of your left ventricle and into your body's largest artery. This valve, like the pulmonary valve, has 3 symmetric cusps that meet in the center when closed, creating a perfect seal that prevents leakage. Just above the aortic valve cusps are the openings to the coronary arteries, positioned so that they fill with blood immediately after the valve closes, ensuring that your heart muscle receives its nourishment during the relaxation phase of the cardiac cycle. When these valves close, they create the sounds we recognize as heartbeats, the familiar lub-dub that has served as humanity's most intimate soundtrack since the beginning of time. The first sound, the lub, occurs when the tricuspid and mitral valves close at the beginning of contraction, creating a longer, lower-pitched sound as these larger valves slam shut nearly simultaneously. The second sound, the dub, happens when the pulmonary and aortic valves snap shut at the end of contraction, producing a sharper, higher-pitched sound as these smaller, more symmetrical valves close crisply. This simple 2-note rhythm has accompanied every human life, every love story, every moment of triumph and tenderness in our species' history. It's the rhythm that mothers hear when they hold their newborns close, the sound that lovers unconsciously synchronize when they embrace, the drumbeat that accompanies us from our first breath to our last. In the quiet moments, if you place your hand over your heart, you can feel this ancient rhythm, this eternal conversation between valves opening and closing, chambers filling and emptying, life flowing and returning. What makes this even more remarkable is your heart's complete autonomy. Unlike skeletal muscles that require conscious commands from your brain to contract muscles, you must deliberately tell to move your arm or take a step. Your heart muscle, cardiac muscle, generates its own rhythm through a specialized pacemaker system. You don't have to think about making your heart beat any more than you have to think about growing your hair or healing a cut. Your heart possesses an intrinsic automaticity, an independent ability to generate its own electrical impulses and contract rhythmically, that sets it apart from almost every other muscle in your body. A small cluster of cells in your right atrium called the sinoatrial node spontaneously generates electrical impulses about 100,000 times per day. This natural pacemaker, sometimes called the SA node, consists of specialized cardiac cells that have the remarkable property of spontaneous depolarization. Naturally accumulate positive electrical charge until they reach a threshold, then fire, creating an electrical impulse that spreads throughout the heart. This natural pacemaker is so reliable that even if your heart were removed from your body and placed in a nutrient solution, it would continue beating for a short time, driven by its own internal rhythm, its own innate pulse of life. The sinoatrial node sits in the wall of the right atrium, near where the superior vena cava enters, positioned like a conductor at the front of an orchestra. Under resting conditions, these cells fire at a rate of about 60 to 100 times per minute, establishing what we call your resting heart rate. But this intrinsic rate can be modified by signals from your nervous system and by hormones circulating in your blood, allowing your heart to speed up or slow down in response to your body's changing needs. The electrical system of your heart spreads these impulses through specialized conducting fibers that ensure perfect coordination. The signal travels from the sinoatrial node down through both atria, causing them to contract and push blood into the ventricles. This electrical wave moves through ordinary cardiac muscle cells at a speed of about 0.3-0.5 meters per second, fast enough to ensure that both atria contract nearly simultaneously, yet slow enough to allow for smooth, coordinated contraction rather than abrupt spasm. The wave then reaches the atrioventricular node, which acts like a relay station, briefly delaying the signal before sending it racing down through the bundle of His and into the Purkinje fibers that spread throughout both ventricles. This delay, lasting only about 1/10 of a second, serves a crucial purpose. It ensures that the atria have time to contract completely and empty their blood into the ventricles before the ventricular contraction begins. Without this delay, the atria and ventricles would contract simultaneously, reducing the heart's pumping efficiency. The bundle of His named after Wilhelm His Jr., who first described this structure in the 1890s Dummer. It's a collection of specialized conducting fibers that penetrate through the fibrous layer separating the atria from the ventricles. This bundle divides into right and left branches, with the left branch further dividing into anterior and posterior fascicles, creating multiple pathways that ensure reliable conduction of the electrical signal, even if one pathway becomes damaged. These bundle branches then spread into an intricate network of Purkinje fibers, specialized conducting cells that carry electrical impulses at remarkable speed up to 4 meters per second, nearly 10 times faster than regular cardiac muscle. These fibers spread from the inside of the ventricles outward, like roots of a tree spreading through soil, ensuring that the ventricles contract from the apex upward, wringing blood out efficiently toward the exit valves. This creates the coordinated ventricular contraction that sends blood surging out to your lungs and body, each beat producing enough force to send blood shooting through your arteries at speeds of up to 30 centimeters per second. The coordination is so precise that both ventricles begin contracting within milliseconds of each other, despite being separated by the thick muscular septum. This synchrony ensures maximum efficiency, preventing any wasteful asynchrony that would reduce pumping effectiveness. Your heart's rhythm adjusts constantly throughout your day, responding to your body's changing needs with the sensitivity of a master musician. When you exercise, climb stairs, or feel excited, your heart rate increases to deliver more oxygen and nutrients to your working muscles. This increase happens through multiple mechanisms. Your sympathetic nervous system releases norepinephrine that speeds up the pacemaker cells. Your adrenal glands release epinephrine into your bloodstream that reinforces this effect. And local metabolic signals from your working muscles trigger adjustments in blood flow distribution. When you rest, meditate, or sleep, your heart slows to match your body's reduced demands. Your parasympathetic nervous system, working primarily through the vagus nerve, releases acetylcholine that slows the firing rate of your sinoatrial node and reduces the force of contraction. This adjustment happens so smoothly that you rarely notice it, yet it represents one of the most sophisticated regulatory systems in biology, a system that continuously balances energy expenditure with energy conservation, ensuring that your heart works neither too hard nor too softly, but always just right for your current needs. Even now, as you rest and listen to these words, your heart continues its faithful work. It's not simply pumping, it's listening. Specialized cells throughout your heart contain receptors that monitor the chemical composition of your blood, adjusting the heart's rhythm based on oxygen levels, carbon dioxide concentration, and pH balance. When carbon dioxide builds up in your blood during exercise, These chemoreceptors detect the change and trigger an increase in heart rate to help eliminate the excess gas through your lungs. Your heart responds to hormones released by your adrenal glands, particularly in times of stress or excitement. Adrenaline and noradrenaline bind to receptors on heart muscle cells, triggering a cascade of cellular events that increase the rate and force of contraction. Your heart also responds to signals from your nervous system, receiving input from both sympathetic fibers, which accelerate and strengthen the heartbeat, and parasympathetic fibers, which slow and gentle it. It monitors subtle changes in your body temperature, beating faster when you're warm to help dissipate heat through increased circulation to your skin, and slowing slightly when you're cold to conserve metabolic energy. Your heart is both pump and sensor, both engine and guidance system for the circulation that sustains your life, continuously gathering information from its environment and adjusting its performance accordingly. The muscle tissue of your heart, the myocardium, is unlike any other muscle in your body. It never gets tired in the way your arm muscles do after lifting weights, or your leg muscles do after a long run. Instead, it's designed for endurance, built from cells that can contract rhythmically billions of times without wearing out. These cardiac muscle cells are striated like skeletal muscle, giving them a striped appearance under the microscope, yet they behave more like smooth muscle in their involuntary automatic nature. Cardiac muscle cells are relatively small and interconnected, each cell typically connected to several neighbors through specialized junctions that allow electrical impulses to spread rapidly from cell to cell, creating the synchronized contraction that makes each heartbeat so beautifully coordinated. Unlike skeletal muscle cells, which are long cylindrical cells with multiple nuclei, cardiac muscle cells are shorter and branched, with typically just one or two nuclei, creating a complex three-dimensional network rather than simple parallel fibers. These cells contain enormous numbers of mitochondria, the cellular power plants that generate energy, reflecting the heart's tremendous metabolic demands. While a typical cell might have just a few dozen mitochondria, a cardiac muscle cell can contain several thousand, packed so densely that they occupy about 1/3 of the cell's volume. These mitochondria work continuously, burning oxygen and glucose to produce the ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that powers each contraction. Perhaps the most poetic aspect of your heart is its metaphorical truth. For millennia, humans have recognized the heart as the seat of emotion, the source of love, the wellspring of courage and compassion. In ancient Egypt, the heart was considered the seat of intelligence and emotion, so important that it was left in the body during mummification, while the brain was discarded. In ancient Greece, Aristotle taught that the heart was the center of thought and sensation. Medieval Europeans spoke of learning things by heart, suggesting that the heart was a place of memory and meaning. While we now know that emotions are processed in the brain, particularly in structures like the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, there's a biological basis for this ancient wisdom. Your heart responds immediately to emotional states, racing with excitement, slowing with contentment, skipping with anxiety. When you see someone you love, your heart rate changes before you're consciously aware of your emotional response. When you're startled or frightened, your heart rate spikes within seconds, driven by a surge of adrenaline that prepares your body for action. The heart is so sensitive to your emotional life that changes in heart rhythm can actually influence your mood and mental state. Researchers have found that the rhythm and pattern of your heartbeat sends information to your brain that affects how you process emotions and perceive the world. A calm, coherent heart rhythm promotes feelings of peace and clarity, while an erratic, chaotic rhythm can contribute to anxiety and confusion. In this way, the ancient understanding of the heart as an emotional center contains a kernel of literal truth. Your heart doesn't just respond to emotions, it helps shape them. As you sink deeper into relaxation tonight, you can feel your heart settling into its gentle, resting rhythm. Your breathing naturally synchronizes with your heartbeat, in a phenomenon called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, a normal variation where your heart rate increases slightly when you inhale and decreases when you exhale. This happens because when you inhale, your diaphragm descends and creates negative pressure in your chest cavity, which draws more blood back to your heart and briefly reduces the vagus nerve's inhibitory effect on the sinoatrial node. This creates a beautiful biological rhythm, like a dance between your heart and lungs, that optimizes the exchange of gases and the efficiency of circulation. When you inhale and your heart rate increases slightly, more blood flows through your lungs, just as they're receiving fresh air, maximizing oxygen uptake. When you exhale and your heart rate decreases, circulation shifts slightly toward other organs. This subtle coordination happens automatically, a testament to the exquisite integration of your body's systems. Your heart asks for nothing more than oxygen and nutrients, yet it gives you everything in the soul to live, to experience the full richness of human existence. It's worked tirelessly since before you were born, and it will continue its faithful service as long as you draw breath. In the quiet darkness of your chest, it maintains the steady rhythm that makes all other rhythms possible, the rhythm of life itself, the drumbeat of existence, the eternal song that began before you had consciousness and will continue until your final moment, faithful unto death. The rivers of life. If you could shrink yourself down and ride along with a single drop of blood through your circulatory system, you would embark on one of the most extraordinary journeys imaginable. You would travel through a vast network of rivers, streams, and tributaries that makes the Amazon basin look simple by comparison. This is your vascular system, an intricate web of tubes that carries life-sustaining blood to every cell in your body, from the largest organs to the tiniest tissues that exist in the spaces between your thoughts. Imagine yourself as a microscopic traveler, small enough to float in the crimson river of blood that flows through your vessels. Around you surge red blood cells, flexible discs without nuclei, bouncing and tumbling in the current. Nearby drift white blood cells, larger and more aggressive-looking, patrol cells of your immune system, ever vigilant for invaders. The plasma in which you float is a complex soup of proteins, hormones, nutrients, and dissolved gases, each molecule serving a specific purpose in the grand choreography of metabolism and homeostasis. Your journey would begin in one of the great chambers of your heart, perhaps the left ventricle, as it contracts with the force of about 1 to 2 pounds per square inch, gentle by industrial standards. A car tire holds about 32 pounds per square inch, yet perfectly calibrated for the delicate task of circulating blood. As the aortic valve opens with a sudden rush, you would be swept into the aorta, your body's main highway, a magnificent tube about the width of a garden hose that arches gracefully up from your heart before curving down through your chest and abdomen. The sensation would be like being caught in a powerful current to surge forward with each heartbeat, followed by a slight easing as the ventricle relaxes. The force would press you against the vessel walls, which yield slightly with each pulse, then recoil, maintaining pressure even between beats. You would feel the rhythm of life itself, pulsing through this primary conduit at the rate of 60, 70, 80 times per minute, carrying you on a journey that billions of red blood cells make every day of your life. The aorta is an engineering marvel in its own right. Its walls contain 3 distinct layers, each contributing to the vessel's remarkable properties. The innermost layer, the tunica intima, is smooth as silk, lined with a single layer of endothelial cells that produce substances to prevent blood clotting and regulate blood flow. This smoothness is crucial. Any roughness would create turbulence that could damage blood cells or create areas where clots might form. The middle layer, the tunica media, contains elastic fibers and smooth muscle cells arranged in concentric rings around the vessel. This layer gives the aorta its unique properties, the ability to expand like a balloon when your heart contracts. storing some of the energy of contraction in stretched elastic fibers, then recoil during relaxation, helping to maintain steady blood pressure even between heartbeats. This elastic recoil is so effective that blood pressure in your arteries never drops to zero, even between beats, ensuring continuous flow to your vital organs. The outer layer, the tunica adventitia, is made of tough connective tissue that provides structure and strength. This layer anchors the aorta to surrounding tissues and contains tiny blood vessels called vasa vasorum, literally vessels of vessels that nourish the aortic wall itself. Even your blood vessels need their own blood supply, a remarkable recursive design that ensures these critical structures remain healthy and functional. This design allows your aorta to expand like a balloon when your heart contracts, its diameter increasing by about 10% with each beat, storing some of the kinetic energy of the heartbeat as potential energy in stretched elastic fibers. Then, as the aortic valve closes and the heart relaxes, the aorta recoils, maintaining pressure and keeping blood moving forward even during diastole. This phenomenon, called the Windkessel effect from the German word for air chamber, transforms the pulsatile output of the heart into a more continuous flow downstream. From the aorta, you would find yourself swept into progressively smaller arteries, the major boulevards of your circulatory system. These medium-sized vessels branch and divide like a river delta, each division carrying blood to specific regions of your body. The very first branches emerge just above the aortic valve, the coronary arteries that will loop back to supply the heart muscle itself. Then come the great vessels to your head and arms, the brachiocephalic trunk which divides to supply your right arm and the right side of your head, the left common carotid artery, heading to the left side of your head, and the left subclavian artery, traveling to your left arm. As you ride the current through one of these branches, perhaps the carotid artery heading to your brain, you would notice the vessel walls becoming more muscular, less elastic. These medium-sized arteries don't need to absorb and release energy like the aorta does. Instead, they need to distribute blood and regulate flow. Their muscular walls can contract or relax in response to signals from your nervous system or local chemical factors, adjusting the amount of blood flowing to different regions based on need. Further downstream, as these arteries continue to branch and narrow, their character changes again. The smallest arteries, called arterioles, are the primary resistance vessels of your circulation. These tiny vessels, typically less than 0.3 millimeters in diameter, have walls that are almost entirely smooth muscle, giving them the ability to contract or relax dramatically, changing their diameter by a factor of 5 or more. These arterioles are like the valves of a vast irrigation system, opening wide when tissues need more blood, constricting when demand is low. They're controlled by your nervous system through sympathetic nerve fibers that release norepinephrine, causing constriction. They respond to local chemical signals produced by working tissue substances like adenosine, carbon dioxide, and lactate that accumulate when cells are active and need more oxygen. They react to circulating hormones like adrenaline, which causes constriction in most organs but dilation in heart and skeletal muscle, and angiotensin, which causes widespread constriction to raise blood pressure. The arterioles also respond to changes in pressure through a process called myogenic autoregulation. When pressure increases, the smooth muscle in the vessel walls contracts to prevent excessive flow. When pressure decreases, the vessels relax to maintain adequate perfusion. This automatic regulation helps protect delicate capillary networks from damage while ensuring that tissues receive appropriate blood flow regardless of changes in systemic blood pressure. From the arterioles, you would enter the most intimate spaces of your circulatory system, the capillaries. The transition is dramatic. The vessel suddenly narrows to barely wider than a red blood cell, forcing you and your fellow blood cells to proceed single file, like passengers moving through an airplane aisle. The walls transform from multiple layers to just a single layer of endothelial cells, creating the perfect environment for the exchange of oxygen, nutrients, and waste products between your blood and your tissues. Here, in these microscopic tubes, you would slow dramatically, while blood races through the aorta at speeds up to 30 centimeters per second. In the capillaries, it crawls at less than 1 millimeter per second. This dramatic slowing happens because, although each individual capillary is tiny, there are so many of them, approximately 40 billion in your body, that their total cross-sectional area is enormous, about 800 times greater than that of the aorta. According to the principle of flow continuity, when the cross-sectional area increases, velocity must decrease, creating these perfect conditions for molecular exchange. These tiny vessels, if placed end to end, would stretch for over 25,000 miles, enough to wrap around the Earth at the equator. In these microscopic spaces, the real work of circulation occurs. Oxygen molecules detach from hemoglobin in your red blood cells, diffuse across the thin capillary wall, only about 0.5 micrometers thick, roughly 1/100th the width of a human hair, and enter waiting tissues where they will fuel cellular respiration. Simultaneously, carbon dioxide and other waste products move in the opposite direction, diffusing from tissues into blood to be carried away for disposal. The capillary environment is one of exquisite intimacy. No cell in your body is more than about 100 micrometers, 1/10 of a millimeter, from the nearest capillary. This ensures that diffusion distances remain short enough for efficient gas and nutrient exchange. In highly metabolic tissues like your brain and heart, capillary density is even greater, with distances between capillaries measured in mere micrometers. The capillary networks in different organs are specialized for their unique functions, demonstrating evolution's ability to create variations on a theme. In your lungs, capillaries surround tiny air sacs called alveoli, creating an enormous surface area where oxygen can enter your blood and carbon dioxide can be removed. The total surface area for gas exchange in your lungs is approximately 70 square meters, about the size of a tennis court packed into the space of 2 organs that fit comfortably within your chest. The lung capillaries are particularly delicate, with walls so thin that the distance between air in the alveoli and blood in the capillaries is less than 1 micrometer, about 1/100th the thickness of a sheet of paper. This minimal barrier allows for rapid diffusion of gases, so efficient that blood passing through the lungs typically becomes fully oxygenated in less than 1 second, even during intense exercise when cardiac output increases dramatically. In your kidneys, capillaries form intricate filtering units called glomeruli that clean your blood by removing toxins and excess water. Each glomerulus consists of a ball of capillaries that allow water and small molecules to filter through into the kidney tubules, while retaining larger molecules like proteins and blood cells. Your kidneys contain about 1 million of these filtering units, processing about 180 liters of fluid per day, though most of this is reabsorbed, leaving only about 1-2 liters as urine. In your brain, capillaries are specially sealed to create the blood-brain barrier, protecting your nervous tissue from potentially harmful substances, while allowing essential nutrients to pass through. The endothelial cells in brain capillaries are connected by extremely tight junctions, with specialized transport proteins that carefully regulate what enters and leaves. This selectivity protects your brain from toxins and pathogens, but also makes treating brain diseases challenging, as many medications cannot cross this barrier. In your intestines, capillaries are designed for absorption, picking up nutrients from digested food. These capillaries are slightly more porous than those elsewhere, allowing rapid uptake of glucose, amino acids, and other nutrients. After a meal, blood flow to your intestines can increase by 50 to 100%, ensuring efficient nutrient absorption. From the intestinal capillaries, blood flows to the liver through the hepatic portal vein, allowing the liver to process and regulate the nutrients before they enter the general circulation. After completing their microscopic work, capillaries begin to merge and widen, forming venules, small vessels that collect used blood and begin the journey home to your heart. The transition is gradual. First, several capillaries merge into a postcapillary venule, barely larger than the capillaries themselves. Then these merge into larger venules, which join to form small veins. The process resembles tributaries flowing into streams into rivers, creating a collecting system that mirrors the branching arterial system you traveled through earlier, but in reverse. These venules join to form increasingly larger veins, creating a return highway system that parallels your arterial network but works under very different conditions. The transformation is striking. Where arterial walls were thick and elastic, venous walls are thinner and more compliant. Where arteries pulsed with the rhythm of your heartbeat, veins flow more steadily. Where arterial blood was bright red with oxygen, venous blood is darker, carrying the metabolic debt of tissues that have consumed oxygen and produced carbon dioxide. Unlike arteries, which carry blood under high pressure generated by the heart's powerful contractions, veins operate in a low-pressure environment. By the time blood reaches the veins, most of the pressure generated by your heart has been dissipated, overcoming resistance in the arterioles and capillaries. Venous pressure is typically only about 1/10 of arterial pressure, creating unique challenges for returning blood to the heart, especially from parts of the body below the heart, where blood must flow upward against gravity. To help blood return to your heart against the pull of gravity, especially from your legs and lower body, veins contain one-way valves that prevent backflow. These valves are formed from thin, semicircular flaps of endothelium that project into the vessel lumen, looking like tiny parachutes or pockets. When blood flows toward the heart, the pressure pushes the valve flaps open against the vessel walls, allowing unimpeded flow. But if blood starts to flow backward, the flaps fill with blood like sails catching wind, pressing together to seal the lumen and prevent backflow. These valves work like locks in a canal, allowing blood to move upward toward your heart, but preventing it from pooling in your extremities. The valves are most numerous in the veins of your legs, where gravity's effects are strongest. Some leg veins contain a valve every few centimeters, creating a series of small chambers that blood must pass through on its journey home. When these valves fail, blood can pool in the veins, causing them to become enlarged and twisted, a condition known as varicose veins. The return journey through your venous system is aided by your muscles, particularly when you walk or exercise. As your leg muscles contract, they squeeze the veins running between them, pushing blood upward through the one-way valves. When the muscles relax, the venous valves close to prevent the blood from flowing backward. This muscle pump system is so effective that it's sometimes called the peripheral heart, capable of significantly increasing venous return and thereby cardiac output. This is why prolonged standing without movement can actually cause blood to pool in your legs, leading to swelling and fatigue. Soldiers standing at attention for long periods sometimes faint as blood pools in their legs, reducing the amount returning to the heart and therefore the amount available to perfuse the brain. Conversely, activities that rhythmically contract and relax leg muscles, walking, running, cycling, promote excellent venous return and cardiovascular health. Your breathing also assists venous return through a mechanism called the respiratory pump. When you inhale, your diaphragm descends and creates negative pressure in your chest cavity. This negative pressure is transmitted to the great veins entering your heart, literally sucking blood upward from your abdomen and lower body. When you exhale, pressure in your chest increases slightly, but the venous valves prevent blood from flowing backward, creating a ratchet effect that steadily moves blood toward your heart with each breath. Your venous blood, now depleted of oxygen and carrying waste products from your body's metabolic processes, eventually reaches the great veins that return blood to your heart. The superior vena cava, A large vessel about the diameter of your thumb collects blood from your head, neck, arms, and upper chest. It courses down along the right side of your heart, delivering blood from above. The inferior vena cava, slightly larger, gathers the return flow from your abdomen, pelvis, and legs, ascending along the right side of your spine before entering the bottom of your heart. These two great rivers of returning blood empty into your right atrium, completing one half of circulation. The confluence is elegant too. The superior and inferior vena cavae enter the atrium at slightly different angles, creating a swirling pattern that helps prevent the two streams from interfering with each other. The right atrium stretches to accommodate the incoming blood, its thin walls yielding easily as the chamber fills. But your blood's journey is only halfway complete. From your right atrium, it flows through the tricuspid valve into your right ventricle, a chamber that's been relaxing and filling even as you traveled through the venous system. As the right ventricle fills, its walls stretch, preparing for the next contraction. When about 70% of ventricular filling has occurred passively, the right atrium contracts, topping off the ventricle and pushing the last portion of blood through the tricuspid valve. Then, as the right ventricle contracts, the tricuspid valve snaps shut and the pulmonary valve opens, and your blood is pumped through the pulmonary arteries to your lungs, the only arteries in your body that carry oxygen-poor blood. This nomenclature sometimes confuses people. Arteries are defined as vessels carrying blood away from the heart, while veins carry blood toward the heart, regardless of whether the blood is oxygenated or deoxygenated. In your lungs, blood travels through millions of tiny capillaries wrapped around air sacs called alveoli, where it releases carbon dioxide and picks up fresh oxygen. The pulmonary capillaries form an incredibly dense network, so extensive that if you could unroll and flatten your lung tissue, the capillary network would cover an area nearly as large as a tennis court. Each alveolus is surrounded by a mesh of capillaries, creating the perfect geometry for gas exchange. This gas exchange happens through simple diffusion. Oxygen naturally moves from areas of high concentration in your lungs, where fresh air enters with each breath, to areas of low concentration in your blood, which has been depleted of oxygen by working tissues, while carbon dioxide moves in the opposite direction, from the relatively high concentration in venous blood to the lower concentration in the airspace of the alveoli. No energy is required for this exchange. It happens automatically according to the physical laws governing diffusion across membranes. The efficiency of this exchange is remarkable. In the fraction of a second that blood spends passing through the pulmonary capillaries, typically less than 1 second even at rest, and only about 1/3 of a second during intense exercise, hemoglobin molecules in your red blood cells release their carbon dioxide and become fully saturated with oxygen. This rapid equilibration is possible because the barrier between air and blood in the lungs is incredibly thin, less than 1 micrometer in many places, and the driving gradients for both oxygen and carbon dioxide are strong. The pulmonary circulation is a marvel of efficiency and gentleness. Your right ventricle pumps blood to your lungs at much lower pressure than your left ventricle uses for systemic circulation, typically about 1/5 the pressure. This lower pressure protects the delicate capillaries in your lungs while still ensuring adequate blood flow for gas exchange. The pulmonary vessels are also more compliant than systemic vessels, capable of accommodating large increases in blood flow during exercise with only modest increases in pressure. The entire journey from your right ventricle through your lungs and back to your left atrium takes only about 4 to 8 seconds at rest, even less during exercise when cardiac output increases. In this brief transit through the lungs, your blood undergoes a complete transformation from dark, oxygen-depleted venous blood to bright, oxygen-rich arterial blood, ready to nourish your body's tissues once again. Refreshed with oxygen and cleansed of carbon dioxide, your blood returns to your left atrium through the pulmonary veins, the only veins in your body that carry oxygen-rich blood, There are typically 4 pulmonary veins, 2 from each lung, that empty into the left atrium from its posterior back wall. The oxygenated blood collects in this chamber, and from there it flows through the mitral valve into your left ventricle, ready to begin another journey through your body's tissues. This dual circulation system through your lungs for gas exchange and through your body for nutrient delivery represents one of evolution's most elegant solutions to the challenge of maintaining complex multicellular life. It allows your body to maintain separate specialized environments for different physiological processes, while ensuring that every cell receives the resources it needs to function. The separation of pulmonary and systemic circulation is a relatively recent evolutionary innovation, appearing only in mammals and birds. Fish have a single circuit where blood flows from heart to gills to body and back to heart. Amphibians and most reptiles have partially divided hearts where oxygenated and deoxygenated blood mix to some degree. Only in mammals and birds did complete separation evolve, allowing for the high metabolic rates and activity levels that characterize these warm-blooded animals. This complete separation allows your lungs to operate at low pressure, protecting their delicate capillaries, while your systemic circulation operates at higher pressure, ensuring adequate perfusion of distant organs. It prevents mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, maximizing the efficiency of oxygen delivery. It allows independent regulation of pulmonary and systemic blood flows so that blood flow to the lungs can increase during exercise without requiring a similar increase in systemic pressure. The blood itself is a liquid tissue more complex than any human-made fluid, a suspension of cells and proteins in a watery matrix that serves as both transport medium and active participant in countless physiological processes. About 55% of your blood volume consists of plasma, a pale yellow liquid that's mostly water but contains hundreds of different dissolved substances, each present in carefully regulated concentrations. Plasma is about 92% water, providing the liquid medium in which everything else is dissolved or suspended. The remaining 8% consists of plasma proteins, including albumin, which helps maintain blood volume, globulins, which include antibodies and transport proteins, and fibrinogen, which is essential for blood clotting, nutrients, glucose, amino acids, lipids, vitamins, electrolytes, sodium, potassium, calcium, chloride, bicarbonate, hormones, insulin, thyroid hormones, cortisol, sex hormones, and dozens of others, waste products, urea, creatinine, bilirubin, and dissolved gases, small amounts of oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen. Plasma carries nutrients absorbed from your digestive system, glucose from broken down carbohydrates, amino acids from proteins, fatty acids and glycerol from fats, vitamins and minerals from various foods. After a meal, glucose levels in your plasma rise, triggering insulin release that signals cells to take up glucose for energy or storage. Between meals, other hormones trigger glucose release from storage, maintaining stable blood sugar levels. It carries hormones secreted by your endocrine glands, allowing chemical messages to reach distant target cells. Your thyroid gland releases thyroid hormones into your blood to regulate metabolism throughout your body. Your pancreas releases insulin and glucagon to regulate blood sugar. Your adrenal glands release cortisol to help you cope with stress and adrenaline to prepare you for action. Your reproductive organs release sex hormones that affect tissues throughout your body. This chemical communication system allows for coordinated regulation of processes occurring in different organs. Plasma carries antibodies produced by your immune system, providing passive immunity as these proteins circulate throughout your body, ready to bind to and neutralize foreign invaders. Some of these antibodies are produced in response to infections or vaccinations and can persist in your blood for years or even decades. providing lasting protection. Others are produced continuously in response to the constant low-level challenges from environmental microbes. It transports waste products to your kidneys and lungs for elimination. Urea, a nitrogen-containing compound produced when your body breaks down proteins, is carried to your kidneys where it's filtered out and excreted in urine. Carbon dioxide produced by cellular respiration is carried to your lungs where it's exhaled. Bilirubin, a breakdown product of old red blood cells, is transported to your liver where it's processed and eventually excreted. Suspended in this plasma are your blood cells, collectively called formed elements because they have definite shapes and structures. These cells make up about 45% of your blood volume, a percentage called a hematocrit. The vast majority of these cells are red blood cells, erythrocytes, with much smaller numbers of white blood cells, leukocytes and platelets, thrombocytes. Your red blood cells are particularly remarkable. They're flexible enough to squeeze through the narrowest capillaries, yet durable enough to survive the turbulent journey through your circulation about 400,000 times before wearing out and being replaced. Each red blood cell is shaped like a biconcave disc, thinner in the middle, then at the edges a shape that maximizes surface area for gas exchange while maintaining flexibility. Mature red blood cells lack a nucleus, and most other organelles, having expelled them during development to make more room for hemoglobin. This sacrifice limits their lifespan to about 120 days, but it allows each cell to carry maximum amounts of oxygen. Without a nucleus, red blood cells cannot make new proteins or repair themselves, so they gradually accumulate damage until they're recognized as old and removed from circulation by your spleen and liver. Each red blood cell is packed with about 270 million molecules of hemoglobin nephroplase protein that contains iron and has the remarkable ability to reversibly bind oxygen. Hemoglobin is a quaternary protein consisting of 4 polypeptide chains, 2 alpha and 2 beta chains, in adult hemoglobin, each containing a heme group with an iron atom at its center. This iron atom is what actually binds oxygen, and it's the iron that gives blood its red color, bright red when oxygenated, darker red when deoxygenated. In your lungs, where oxygen concentration is high, hemoglobin eagerly captures oxygen molecules. The binding of one oxygen molecule increases hemoglobin's affinity for additional oxygen molecules, a phenomenon called cooperative binding that allows hemoglobin to become rapidly and fully saturated in the lungs. In your tissues where oxygen concentration is lower, hemoglobin releases its cargo willingly. As the first oxygen molecules dissociate, hemoglobin's affinity for the remaining oxygen decreases, facilitating complete oxygen unloading. This reversible binding allows your blood to carry about 70 times more oxygen than could be dissolved in plasma alone. If we relied only on dissolved oxygen, your heart would need to pump about 70 times more blood to deliver the same amount of oxygen clearly, an impossible demand. Hemoglobin makes efficient oxygen transport possible, allowing your blood to carry enough oxygen to support the high metabolic rates characteristic of mammals. Hemoglobin also helps transport carbon dioxide, though by different mechanisms. Some carbon dioxide binds directly to hemoglobin, at sites different from where oxygen binds, while most is converted to bicarbonate ions in red blood cells and carried in the plasma. Hemoglobin also acts as a buffer, helping to maintain blood pH within the narrow range necessary for optimal enzyme function. Your white blood cells, though far less numerous than red blood cells, typically only about 5,000–10,000 per microliter, compared to 4–5 million red blood cells, play crucial roles in defending your body against infection and disease. There are several types of white blood cells, each specialized for different aspects of immune defense. Neutrophils that engulf and destroy bacteria, lymphocytes that produce antibodies and coordinate immune responses, monocytes that develop into macrophages and consume pathogens and debris, eosinophils that defend against parasites and play roles in allergic reactions, and basophils that release histamine during allergic and inflammatory responses. Unlike red blood cells that stay within blood vessels except when vessels are damaged, many white blood cells can squeeze between endothelial cells and leave the circulation traveling through tissues to sites of infection or injury. This ability to extravasate leave the vessels allows white blood cells to directly confront pathogens in tissues, rather than being limited to fighting infections only within the bloodstream. Platelets, the smallest of the formed elements, are actually fragments of larger cells called megakaryocytes that reside in your bone marrow. These tiny cell fragments, typically only 2–3 micrometers in diameter, play essential roles in hemostasis, the stopping of bleeding. When a blood vessel is damaged, platelets rapidly adhere to the exposed collagen in the vessel wall, then release chemicals that attract more platelets, forming a platelet plug that provides immediate temporary control of bleeding while the slower clotting cascade proceeds. Your circulatory system also serves as your body's communication network, carrying chemical messages between distant organs with remarkable speed and specificity. When your thyroid gland releases hormones that regulate metabolism, your blood carries them to every cell in your body within a minute or two. When your adrenal glands respond to stress by releasing adrenaline, your circulation delivers this chemical message throughout your system in seconds, simultaneously increasing heart rate, dilating airways, and mobilizing energy stores. When your digestive system absorbs nutrients from a meal, your blood transports them to wherever they're needed: glucose to your brain and muscles for immediate energy, amino acids to tissues throughout your body for protein synthesis, fatty acids to adipose tissue for energy storage. The liver monitors this nutrient influx and regulates it, storing excess glucose as glycogen, converting some nutrients to others, and releasing stored nutrients between meals to maintain stable blood concentrations. Perhaps most remarkably, your circulatory system is self-maintaining and self-repairing, capable of detecting and responding to damage with sophisticated mechanisms that have evolved over millions of years. When blood vessels are damaged, a complex cascade of clotting factors springs into action, forming plugs that stop bleeding while allowing repairs to begin. The clotting cascade involves more than a dozen different proteins clotting factors that activate each other in sequence, creating an amplification system where a small initial signal triggers a large response. The cascade culminates in the conversion of fibrinogen, a soluble plasma protein, to fibrin-insoluble protein strands that form a mesh which traps blood cells and forms a stable clot. This amplification system ensures rapid clot formation when needed, while regulatory mechanisms prevent inappropriate clotting when vessels are intact. New blood vessels can grow to bypass blocked ones, a process called collateral circulation that can literally create new pathways around obstructions. This angiogenesis, growth of new blood vessels, involves endothelial cells proliferating and migrating to form new tubes, guided by chemical signals released by oxygen-deprived tissues. While this process occurs naturally in response to blockages, it can also be stimulated by exercise, which is one reason why regular physical activity improves cardiovascular health. Your circulation also plays a crucial role in temperature regulation, acting as a heat distribution and dissipation system that helps maintain your core temperature within the narrow range necessary for optimal cellular function. When you're hot, blood vessels near your skin dilate to increase heat loss. Blood flow to the skin can increase by 20-fold during heat stress, carrying warm blood from your core to your skin surface, where heat can radiate into the environment. You may also sweat, and the evaporation of sweat from your skin removes additional heat. Meanwhile, vessels supplying internal organs may constrict to divert warm blood to the surface. When you're cold, this pattern reverses, with surface vessels constricting to conserve heat for vital organs. Blood flow to the skin may decrease to as little as 1/10 of its normal rate, reducing heat loss and maintaining core temperature at the expense of cold fingers and toes. This vascular adjustment happens constantly and unconsciously, mediated by temperature receptors in your skin and hypothalamus that trigger appropriate autonomic responses. The system is so sensitive that it can detect temperature changes of less than 1 degree and respond within seconds. This temperature regulation is one reason why maintaining good circulation is so important for overall health. It ensures that metabolic heat generated by your liver and muscles can be efficiently distributed and, when necessary, dissipated. As you rest tonight and your circulation settles into its quieter nighttime rhythm, blood flow redistributes to support the restorative processes of sleep. More blood flows to your digestive organs to support overnight repair and detoxification. Your liver, which has been processing nutrients and toxins all day, receives enhanced blood flow to support its regenerative activities. Liver cells are among the few in your body that retain the ability to divide and regenerate throughout life. Your brain maintains its high metabolic demands even during sleep, receiving about 20% of your cardiac output despite representing only about 2% of your body weight. This disproportionate blood flow reflects the brain's enormous energy needs. Neurons cannot store significant amounts of energy and require continuous oxygen and glucose supply. During sleep, this blood flow supports the neural activities that organize memories, consolidate learning, and process the day's experiences. Blood flow to your muscles decreases during sleep, as these tissues have lower metabolic demands when at rest. Your kidneys continue their filtration work, processing about 180 liters of blood per day, even while you sleep, removing waste products and regulating fluid and electrolyte balance. Your skin receives moderate blood flow, supporting the cell division and repair processes that occur primarily during sleep. The rivers of life flowing through your body right now carry more than just oxygen and nutrients. They carry the very essence of your biological existence. Every cell in your body depends on this circulation for survival. Every thought in your mind depends on blood flow to your brain. Every emotion in your heart is accompanied by changes in circulation. Every movement of your body requires blood flow to deliver energy to muscles. Your blood carries your immune defenses, constantly patrolling for invaders. It carries your hormones, coordinating activities between distant organs. It carries your body heat, distributing warmth and maintaining optimal temperature. It carries nutrients from your gut to every cell that needs them. It carries waste products from tissues to organs of elimination. It carries dissolved gases, chemical signals, and countless other substances essential for life. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, you can trust in this ancient circulation that has sustained life for hundreds of millions of years. The basic pattern of your circulation, heart pumping blood through arteries to capillaries to veins and back to heart, is shared with every mammal on Earth, from tiny shrews to massive whales. The same basic principles of flow and pressure and exchange govern circulation in all of us, testimony to the power of evolution to find solutions that work and preserve them across millions of years. Your heart will continue its patient pumping, adjusting its rate and force to match your body's changing needs. Your vessels will continue their careful regulation of flow, dilating and constricting to direct blood where it's needed most. Your blood will continue its essential journey through the rivers of life that keep you beautifully, wonderfully alive, each circuit taking about 1 minute, each journey delivering life to every cell, each return home to the heart, setting the stage for another trip through the miraculous network that sustains your existence. The language of rhythm. In the quiet sanctuary of your chest, your heart speaks a language older than words, more fundamental than thought. This is the language of rhythm, a sophisticated communication system that connects your heart not only to every cell in your body, but to the deepest patterns of existence itself. Each heartbeat carries messages encoded in timing, pressure, and flow, creating a biological poetry that has been composing itself since the first heart began to beat in ancient seas hundreds of millions of years ago. This language is not spoken in words or symbols, but in the subtle variations of pressure waves, in the timing between beats, in the strength of contractions, in the electrical patterns that coordinate muscular movement. It's a language that your body understands implicitly, without conscious translation, the way you understand music without needing to analyze its mathematical structure. Your cells listen to this rhythm and adjust their activities accordingly, speeding up when the rhythm quickens, slowing when it calms. Your heart's rhythm is far more complex and meaningful than the simple lub-dub you might imagine. It's a constantly changing composition that reflects your body's needs, your emotional states, your level of activity, and even your thoughts. Like a master musician who can play the same melody in countless variations, your heart modulates its rhythm moment by moment, creating subtle changes in timing, force, and pattern that communicate precise information to the rest of your body. The tempo can shift from a slow 40 beats per minute during deep sleep in highly trained athletes to over 200 beats per minute during maximum exertion. The force can vary from gentle to powerful, adjusting the amount of blood ejected with each beat. The timing between beats can stretch or contract, responding to breathing, position changes, and emotional states. All these variations carry meaning, signaling to your body what kind of support it needs in each moment. The basic rhythm of your heartbeat is established by your sinoatrial node, that small cluster of specialized cells in your right atrium that serves as your heart's natural pacemaker. This structure, only about 15 millimeters long and 5 millimeters wide, roughly the size of a grain of rice, contains cells that have the remarkable ability to spontaneously generate electrical impulses, creating the fundamental tempo of your existence. These pacemaker cells are autorhythmic. They depolarize on their own, without external stimulation, at a regular rate. This happens because their cell membranes are slightly leaky to sodium and calcium ions. Between beats, these positive ions slowly leak into the cells, gradually making the inside less negative. When the voltage reaches a threshold, the cells fire, generating an electrical impulse that spreads to the rest of the heart. Then the cells repolarize, and the cycle begins again. The intrinsic rate of the sinoatrial node, the rate it would fire if isolated from all external influences, is about 100 times per minute. But this intrinsic rhythm is constantly being fine-tuned by two major influences: your sympathetic nervous system, which can speed up your heart rate and increase the force of contractions, and your parasympathetic nervous system, which slows your heart rate and promotes relaxation. At rest, your parasympathetic nervous system, working primarily through the vagus nerve, exerts continuous inhibitory influence on your sinoatrial node. This vagal tone slows your resting heart rate to typically 60–80 beats per minute, creating a physiological reserve that allows for rapid increases in heart rate when needed. People with high vagal tone, often athletes and people who meditate regularly, may have resting heart rates in the 40s or 50s, a sign of excellent cardiovascular fitness. This dual control creates what scientists call heart rate variability, the natural variation in time between successive heartbeats. If you measured the precise interval between each heartbeat, you'd find they're not perfectly regular. One beat might occur 0.95 seconds after the previous one. The next might be 1.02 seconds later, then 0.98 seconds, then 1.01 seconds, and so on. These small variations, typically measured in milliseconds, carry important information about your autonomic nervous system function and overall health. At first glance, you might think a perfectly regular heartbeat would be ideal, like a metronome keeping perfect time, but actually, the opposite is true. A healthy heart shows constant subtle variations in its rhythm, speeding up slightly when you inhale and slowing down when you exhale. This variability is a sign of a responsive, adaptable cardiovascular system that can adjust moment by moment to your body's changing demands. Paradoxically, low heart rate variability, a more metronomic, regular rhythm, is associated with various health problems, including increased cardiovascular risk, depression, anxiety, and stress. A highly variable heart rate indicates that your autonomic nervous system is responsive and balanced, able to quickly shift between sympathetic and parasympathetic modes as needed. It suggests that your body is resilient, adaptable, capable of meeting challenges, and recovering from stress. When you take a deep breath, your vagus nerve, a major component of your parasympathetic nervous system, reduces its inhibitory influence on your heart, allowing your heart rate to increase slightly. This happens partly because the deep inhalation stretches receptors in your lungs that send signals to your brainstem, momentarily decreasing vagal output. As you exhale, vagal tone increases, gently slowing your heart. This creates a beautiful biological rhythm called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, where your heart rate rises and falls in harmony with your breathing like a gentle tide that follows the rhythm of lunar phases. During inhalation, your heart rate might increase by 5-15 beats per minute. During exhalation, it slows by a similar amount. This rhythmic variation is most pronounced during slow, deep breathing and is a sign of healthy parasympathetic function. The respiratory sinus arrhythmia serves a functional purpose beyond just demonstrating autonomic flexibility. By increasing heart rate during inhalation, it helps match blood flow through the lungs to airflow, maximizing the efficiency of gas exchange. Blood arrives at the lungs just as fresh air is entering, optimizing oxygen uptake. This elegant coordination between cardiovascular and respiratory systems shows how deeply integrated your body's functions truly are. This heart-breath connection is so fundamental that it can be consciously influenced through breathing techniques. When you deliberately slow and deepen your breathing to around 5-6 breaths per minute, compared to the typical 12-20 breaths per minute at rest, you enhance your heart rate variability, creating a state of physiological coherence where your heart, mind, and emotions enter into energetic alignment. In this coherent state, heart rate variability shows smooth sine wave-like oscillations. Blood pressure waves synchronize with heart rate oscillations. Even brain waves may begin to show coherent patterns. Many meditation and relaxation practices intuitively tap into this heart-breath connection, using controlled breathing to promote feelings of calm and well-being. The practice of counting breaths, following the breath, or breathing to a specific rhythm all leverage this fundamental physiological relationship. Your heart's language extends beyond simple rate changes to include variations in the strength and pattern of contractions. When you need more blood flow during exercise, excitement, or stress, your heart not only beats faster but also contracts more forcefully, ejecting more blood with each beat. This increased stroke volume combines with the faster heart rate to dramatically increase your cardiac output, sometimes by 4 or 5 times your resting level. This increase in contractile force is mediated by sympathetic nerve stimulation and circulating catecholamines, adrenaline and noradrenaline, that bind to beta-adrenergic receptors on heart muscle cells. These receptors trigger a cascade of intracellular events that increase calcium availability within the cells, allowing for stronger contractions. At the same time, these signals speed up relaxation, allowing the heart to fill adequately even at high heart rates. The heart can also adjust how completely it empties with each beat. At rest, your left ventricle typically contains about 120 milliliters of blood at the end of filling and ejects about 70 milliliters, leaving 50 milliliters behind, an ejection fraction of about 58%. During intense exercise, the ventricle might eject 100 milliliters or more from a chamber that's filled to 140 milliliters, increasing the ejection fraction to over 70%. This ability to modulate both filling and ejection allows your heart to fine-tune its output across a wide range of demands. But your heart doesn't just respond to physical demands, it's exquisitely sensitive to your emotional states, creating what we might call the emotional vocabulary of cardiac rhythm. When you feel love, gratitude, or compassion, your heart rate variability tends to become more coherent and ordered, creating smooth sine wave-like patterns that reflect inner harmony. Research has shown that positive emotions produce distinctive patterns in heart rhythm that can be measured and quantified. When you experience frustration, anxiety, or anger, your heart rhythm becomes more erratic and chaotic, with jagged, irregular patterns that mirror your emotional turbulence. The heart rate variability loses its smooth oscillations and instead shows sharp spikes and sudden changes, reflecting the activation of your sympathetic nervous system and the release of stress hormones. These patterns are so distinctive that they can sometimes be used to infer emotional states from heart rate data alone. This heart-emotion connection is so strong that changes in heart rhythm can actually influence your emotional state, not just reflect it. When your heart rhythm is coherent and ordered, it sends signals to your brain through multiple pathways, neural signals traveling up the vagus nerve, hormonal signals carried in the blood, pressure waves transmitted through the arterial system that promote feelings of calm, clarity, and emotional balance. These signals reach brain regions involved in emotional processing, including the amygdala, which processes fear and threat, and the prefrontal cortex, which governs executive function and emotional regulation. A coherent heart rhythm appears to facilitate better emotional regulation, clearer thinking, and improved decision-making. When your heart rhythm is chaotic, the signals reaching your brain can contribute to feelings of anxiety, confusion, and emotional instability. This creates a feedback loop where your emotions affect your heart rhythm, which in turn influences your emotions. Positive emotions create coherent rhythms that reinforce positive emotions. Negative emotions create chaotic rhythms that can intensify negative emotional states. Understanding this loop provides a powerful tool for emotional self-regulation by consciously creating a more coherent heart rhythm through breathing techniques or cultivating positive emotions. You can shift your emotional state from the bottom up, so to speak. Your heart also speaks the language of hormones, both responding to and producing these chemical messengers. When you experience stress, your adrenal glands release hormones like adrenaline and cortisol that cause your heart to beat faster and more forcefully, preparing your body for action. Adrenaline binds to beta receptors on heart muscle cells, triggering rapid increases in heart rate and contractility within seconds. Cortisol works more slowly, but provides sustained support for the stress response over hours or days. When you feel calm and relaxed, your body produces different hormones that slow your heart rate and promote rest and restoration. Acetylcholine released by vagus nerve endings slows the sinoatrial node. Other hormones like oxytocin, released during bonding and affection, may have calming effects on the cardiovascular system. The parasympathetic nervous system becomes dominant, creating the physiological conditions for rest, digestion, and tissue repair. Interestingly, your heart is not just a responder to hormonal messages, it's also a hormone-producing organ in its own right. When your atria stretch due to increased blood volume, such as after drinking a large amount of fluid, they release a hormone called atrial peptide (ANP) that helps regulate blood pressure and fluid balance. ANP travels through your bloodstream to your kidneys, where it increases sodium excretion in urine. Since water follows sodium, this increases urine output and reduces blood volume, bringing pressure back toward normal. ANP also dilates blood vessels, and inhibits the release of other hormones that raise blood pressure. This allows your heart to participate actively in maintaining the optimal conditions for circulation, rather than simply following commands from other organs. The ventricles also produce a related hormone called brain natriuretic peptide, BNP. Despite its misleading name, it was first discovered in brain tissue but is produced primarily by the heart. BNP is released when the ventricles are stretched, typically due to increased workload or heart failure, and has similar effects to ANP in promoting sodium excretion and vasodilation. The language of your heart's rhythm also includes responses to the physical environment around you. Changes in barometric pressure, temperature, and even the phases of the moon can influence your cardiovascular patterns in subtle ways that scientists are still working to fully understand. Your heart responds to the time of day with its own circadian rhythm, typically beating faster during daylight hours when you're active and slower at night when you rest. This circadian variation in heart rate is controlled by your suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's master clock located in the hypothalamus. This clock synchronizes to the light-dark cycle and coordinates numerous physiological rhythms throughout your body. Heart rate typically reaches its lowest point between 2-4 a.m. and its highest point in late afternoon or early evening. This pattern persists even in people who work night shifts, though it gradually adjusts to new schedules over days or weeks. Blood pressure follows a similar circadian pattern, typically dropping 10 to 20% during sleep, a phenomenon called dipping, and rising in the early morning hours before awakening. This morning's surge in blood pressure and heart rate may explain why cardiovascular events like heart attacks and strokes occur more frequently in the morning hours. The circadian rhythm is so fundamental that disruptions to it, such as shift work or chronic jet lag, are associated with increased cardiovascular risk. This biological timekeeper helps coordinate your cardiovascular function with your body's natural cycles of activity and rest, ensuring that cardiovascular resources are allocated appropriately across the day. During sleep, when metabolic demands are lower, your heart can slow and rest while still maintaining adequate perfusion of vital organs. Upon awakening, cardiovascular function ramps up in anticipation of the day's activities. Even your heart's physical position in your chest speaks a language of adaptation and efficiency. Tilted slightly to the left with its apex pointing downward, your heart is positioned to work with gravity rather than against it. This leftward tilt places the powerful left ventricle in an optimal position to eject blood into the aorta, which arches over the heart before descending through the chest and abdomen. The spiral arrangement of muscle fibers in your ventricular walls creates a twisting motion during contraction that wrings blood out more efficiently than simple squeezing would accomplish. The fibers spiral from the outside of the heart to the inside in a complex helical pattern. When these fibers contract, they don't just compress the ventricles, they twist them, like wringing water from a towel. This twisting motion, combined with the conical shape of the ventricles, efficiently propels blood upward toward the exit valves. The electrical language of your heart can be read and interpreted through electrocardiography, ECG, which records the electrical impulses that coordinate your heartbeat. An ECG traces the wave of electrical activity as it spreads through your heart, creating a characteristic pattern that reflects the heart's function. Each component of the ECG waveform tells part of your heart's story. The P wave represents atrial depolarization, the electrical activation that causes atrial contraction. The QRS complex shows ventricular depolarization, ventricular activation, and the T wave reflects ventricular repolarization, electrical recovery. The intervals between these waves are equally meaningful. The PR interval measures the time from atrial activation to ventricular activation, reflecting conduction through the AV node. The QT interval measures the total time of ventricular activation and recovery, and varies with heart rate. Trained readers of these electrical patterns can detect subtle changes in rhythm, conduction, and heart muscle health, identifying problems that may not yet cause symptoms. Changes in the ECG can reveal a wealth of information: abnormally fast or slow heart rates, irregular rhythms, evidence of previous heart attacks, signs of inadequate blood flow to the heart muscle, effects of electrolyte imbalances, and more. The ECG has become one of the most valuable tools in cardiovascular medicine, providing a window into the heart's electrical activity that can be captured in seconds with electrodes placed on the skin. But perhaps the most profound aspect of your heart's language is its connection to the ancient rhythms that govern all life. Your resting heart rate of around 60-100 beats per minute places you in harmony with many fundamental biological cycles. This rhythm echoes in the patterns of brain waves during relaxed wakefulness. Alpha waves oscillate at about 8-12 cycles per second, and 10 heartbeats at 60 BPM would occur in exactly 10 seconds, in the natural breathing rate of deep sleep, and in the circadian cycles that govern cellular repair and renewal. Your heart's rhythm also connects you to the broader rhythms of the natural world. The approximately 40 million heartbeats in an average year mirrors the seasonal cycles of growth and rest that govern plant and animal life. The daily variation in your heart rate follows patterns that echo the cycle of day and night, connecting your internal rhythms to the rotation of the Earth itself. These parallels suggest deep evolutionary connections between the rhythms within us and the rhythms around us. Interestingly, many mammals have similar total lifetime heartbeats, despite vastly different lifespans and heart rates. A mouse with a heart rate of 600 beats per minute lives about 2 years and has roughly 600 million lifetime heartbeats. An elephant with a heart rate of 30 beats per minute lives about 70 years and also has roughly 600 million lifetime heartbeats. Humans are an exception to this pattern, with about 2.5 billion lifetime heartbeats, evidence of how medicine and culture have extended our natural lifespan. In many spiritual and healing traditions, the heart is recognized as more than just a physical pump. It's seen as a center of wisdom, intuition, and connection to others. In yogic traditions, the heart chakra anahata is considered the center of love, compassion, and emotional balance. In Chinese medicine, the heart houses the Shen spirit or consciousness. Indigenous cultures worldwide have recognized the heart as a seat of wisdom and emotional truth. Modern research is beginning to validate some of these ancient insights, showing that the heart has its own nervous system with over 40,000 neurons that can process information and make decisions independently of the brain. This heart-brain or intrinsic cardiac nervous system contains sensory neurons that detect changes in heart function, interconnections that process this information, and motor neurons that adjust heart rate and contractility. These cardiac neurons can form memories, learn patterns, and make local decisions about heart function. The heart-brain communicates extensively with the brain in your skull, sending more signals up to the brain than it receives from the brain. This suggests that the heart may influence perception, decision-making, and emotional processing more than previously recognized. The heart-brain may be the biological basis for what we call gut feelings, or heartfelt intuition, sensations that arise from the body rather than conscious thought. Your heart's electromagnetic field is the strongest produced by any organ in your body, extending several feet beyond your physical form. This field can be detected by sensitive instruments magnetocardiography and is about 60 times stronger in amplitude than the electromagnetic field produced by your brain. The heart's field varies with emotional states, showing different patterns during positive emotions versus negative emotions. Some researchers suggest that this field may be one way that hearts communicate with each other, explaining phenomena like emotional contagion, the tendency for people to unconsciously synchronize their emotional states when they're close to each other. Studies have shown that when people are in proximity, their heart rhythms may begin to show subtle correlations, as if their hearts are listening to each other through electromagnetic fields. While this research is still controversial and not fully understood, it hints at the possibility of heart-to-heart communication that operates below the level of conscious awareness. As you settle into rest tonight, your heart's language shifts into its nighttime vocabulary. Your heart rate slows, dropping perhaps 10-30 beats per minute below your daytime resting rate. Your blood pressure decreases by 10 to 20%, reducing the workload on your heart and blood vessels. Your heart rate variability increases as your parasympathetic nervous system takes precedence over sympathetic activation, creating long, slow oscillations in heart rate, synchronized with your breathing. This creates the optimal conditions for rest, repair, and restoration, allowing your cardiovascular system to recover from the day's activities and prepare for tomorrow's demands. During sleep, your body engages in numerous repair processes. Damaged tissues heal, immune function strengthens, cellular waste products are cleared, and energy stores are replenished. The cardiovascular system participates in and supports all of these processes. The rhythm now beating in your chest carries messages of peace and restoration. It speaks of trust in the body's ancient wisdom, of faith in the processes that have sustained life for millions of years. Each beat whispers of resilience, of adaptation, of the incredible capacity of living systems to maintain themselves in perfect balance, despite constant challenges from the internal and external environment. Listen, if you can, to the gentle rhythm of your own heartbeat. You might place a hand over your heart and feel its steady pulse, or notice the subtle movement of your chest with each beat. Feel it as more than just a mechanical pump, but as the drummer in the orchestra of your existence, keeping time for all the other musicians you're breathing, your circulation, your cellular metabolism, your brain waves, your digestive rhythms, your hormonal cycles. Every function in your body is coordinated with this central rhythm, either directly or indirectly. This is the rhythm that has accompanied every moment of your life, every joy and sorrow, every triumph and challenge. Your heart was beating during your first day of school, your first friendship, your first disappointment. It beat through every moment of love you've experienced, every act of kindness you've witnessed or performed. It maintained its rhythm through challenges and illnesses, through celebrations and quiet ordinary days. It is the most intimate music you will ever know, playing just for you in the concert hall of your chest, a private performance that began before your birth and will continue until your final moment. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, trust in this ancient rhythm. Let it carry you into the restorative depths of slumber, where your heart will continue its faithful work, beating approximately 28,000 times before you wake. If you sleep for 8 hours at 60 beats per minute, each beat is a small prayer of gratitude for the gift of life. Each rhythm, a gentle lullaby sung by the most devoted musician in the universe, your own miraculous heart. As your consciousness fades into sleep, your heart will continue its work, never pausing, never resting completely, maintaining the circulation that keeps you alive. It will slow its tempo, soften its force, settle into the quiet nighttime rhythm that allows for rest and repair. And in the morning, it will be ready to accelerate again, to meet the demands of a new day, to carry you through whatever joys and challenges await. The heart's secret gardens. Within the muscular walls of your heart lie some of the most remarkable blood vessels in your entire body, delicate arteries that weave through your cardiac muscle like rivers through a fertile valley, bringing life-sustaining oxygen and nutrients to the very organ that pumps life to everything else. These are your coronary arteries, and they represent one of nature's most elegant solutions to a complex engineering problem: how to keep the pump itself supplied with the resources it needs to keep pumping. The challenge is significant. Your heart muscle works harder than almost any other tissue in your body, contracting rhythmically about 100,000 times each day without rest, without vacation, without the luxury of fatigue. This extraordinary workload means your heart has an enormous appetite for oxygen and glucose. In fact, gram for gram, your heart muscle consumes more energy than nearly any other organ, except perhaps your brain during intense mental activity. To meet these demands, your heart has evolved its own private circulation system, a network of vessels so crucial that even brief interruptions can have serious consequences. The coronary circulation is separate from the blood flowing through the heart chambers. That blood is being pumped to other organs and provides no nourishment to the heart muscle itself. Instead, the heart muscle receives its blood supply through a dedicated network of coronary vessels that branch from the aorta. The coronary circulation begins at the very root of your aorta, just above your aortic valve, in two small openings called the coronary ostia. Here, like two small streams branching from a great river, the left and right coronary arteries begin their journey through the landscape of your heart. These arteries are positioned perfectly to fill with blood each time your heart relaxes between beats, ensuring a steady supply of oxygenated blood to your cardiac muscle precisely when it's needed most. The positioning of these coronary ostia just above the aortic valve is no accident. When the left ventricle contracts and the aortic valve opens, blood rushes past the coronary ostia without entering them. The pressure and turbulence would make filling difficult or impossible. But the moment the ventricle finishes contracting and the aortic valve snaps shut, the small pockets of tissue just above the valve cusps, called the sinuses of Valsalva, fill with blood. From these sinuses, blood flows smoothly into the coronary arteries, beginning its journey through the heart muscle. The left main coronary artery is often called the widowmaker by medical professionals, not for any sinister quality, but because it supplies such a large portion of your heart muscle that blockage here can have dramatic consequences. This artery is typically about 1/2 centimeters long and 3/6 millimeters in diameter, roughly the width of a drinking straw. Despite its brief length, it's one of the most critical vessels in your body. This artery quickly divides into two major branches, creating a Y-shaped pattern. The left anterior descending artery, LAD, travels down the front of your heart along the interventricular groove, the valley between your right and left ventricles. It sends branches both to the left and right, supplying the front wall of the left ventricle, much of the interventricular septum, the wall separating the ventricles, and the apex of the heart. The LAD is sometimes called the most important artery in the body because it supplies such a large territory of critical heart muscle. The left circumflex artery takes a different path, curving around the left side of your heart, like a scenic route following the heart's natural contours. It travels in the atrioventricular groove, the valley between your left atrium and left ventricle, wrapping around toward the back of the heart. The circumflex gives off branches that supply the left atrium and the lateral and posterior walls of the left ventricle. The exact territory supplied varies between individuals. In some people, the circumflex is large and supplies much of the back of the heart. In others, it's smaller. The right coronary artery takes a different path, traveling along the groove between your right atrium and right ventricle before curving around the back of your heart. It typically supplies the right ventricle, portions of the right atrium, and in most people, about 70%, the posterior descending artery branches from the right coronary artery to supply the bottom portion of the heart and the posterior third of the interventricular septum. The right coronary artery also typically gives rise to branches that nourish the sinoatrial node in about 60% of people and the atrioventricular node in about 90% of people, making it critical for maintaining normal heart rhythm. This is why blockages of the right coronary artery can cause not only muscle damage, but also dangerous rhythm disturbances. The pattern of coronary artery distribution varies among individuals. A phenomenon called coronary dominance. In right dominant circulation, about 70% of people The right coronary artery gives rise to the posterior descending artery. In left dominant circulation, about 10% of people, the left circumflex gives rise to the posterior descending artery. In codominant circulation, about 20% of people, both arteries contribute to supplying the posterior heart. These variations matter clinically, as blockage of the dominant artery typically causes more extensive damage. These major coronary arteries branch and divide into progressively smaller vessels, creating a network so dense and intricate that it resembles the most elaborate garden irrigation system ever designed. Each major artery gives rise to dozens of smaller arteries, which branch into hundreds of arterioles, which feed thousands of capillaries. The smallest branches, called arterioles and capillaries, weave between individual heart muscle cells, ensuring that no cell is more than a few micrometers away from its blood supply. This intimate proximity between blood vessels and muscle fibers allows for the rapid exchange of oxygen, nutrients, and waste products that keeps your heart muscle functioning optimally. A single cardiac muscle cell may be in contact with multiple capillaries, and each capillary supplies multiple muscle cells, creating redundancy that helps protect against localized damage. The density of coronary capillaries is remarkable in the left ventricular muscle. There may be 3,000 to 4,000 capillaries per square millimeter of tissue. This density is similar to that found in your brain and higher than in most other tissues, reflecting the heart's enormous metabolic demands. The total length of coronary capillaries in a human heart is estimated at over 5,000 kilometers, enough to stretch from New York to Los Angeles and back. What makes the coronary circulation particularly fascinating is its timing, which differs from that of other organs. Unlike other organs that receive relatively steady blood flow throughout the cardiac cycle, your heart muscle receives most of its blood supply during diastole, the relaxation phase between heartbeats. During systole, when your heart contracts, the coronary arteries are compressed by the contracting muscle, temporarily reducing blood flow. The left coronary artery is particularly affected, as the powerful left ventricular contraction can completely occlude intramuscular vessels. But as soon as your heart relaxes, the coronary vessels fill rapidly with blood, like springs refilling after winter snow melts. The elastic recoil of the aorta maintains pressure in the coronary arteries even during diastole, ensuring continuous perfusion. This creates a beautiful synchrony between your heart's work and its nourishment. Each contraction not only pumps blood to your body, but also sets up the conditions for refilling the coronary arteries during the subsequent relaxation. This timing is why abnormally fast heart rates can be problematic for coronary perfusion. As heart rate increases, systole contraction time stays relatively constant, but diastole relaxation time becomes progressively shorter. At very high heart rates, diastole may become so brief that coronary filling is inadequate, potentially causing ischemia, inadequate oxygen supply even in the absence of coronary artery disease. This is one reason why certain heart rhythm abnormalities that cause very fast heart rates can be dangerous. It's as if your heart has learned to hold its breath while working, then take a deep drink of nourishment during each moment of rest. This arrangement requires exquisite timing. The heart must relax long enough to allow adequate coronary filling, but not so long that cardiac output becomes inadequate. At rest, the heart spends about 1/3 of the cardiac cycle in systole and 2/3 in diastole, providing ample time for coronary perfusion. The coronary vessels are also remarkably adaptable, capable of adjusting their diameter to match your heart's changing demands through a process called autoregulation. When you exercise or experience emotional stress, your heart needs more oxygen and nutrients to support its increased workload. Both the faster heart rate and the stronger contractions demand more energy. The coronary arteries respond by dilating, increasing blood flow to the heart muscle by up to 4 or 5 times the resting level. This dilation is triggered by multiple mechanisms. Local metabolic factors adenosine released by working heart muscle, decreased oxygen tension, increased carbon dioxide, decreased pH all cause coronary vasodilation. Sympathetic nervous system activation releases norepinephrine, which has variable effects. It causes vasoconstriction through alpha receptors, but vasodilation through beta receptors, with beta effects typically predominating in coronary vessels. Endothelial cells lining the coronary arteries produce nitric oxide, a potent vasodilator, in response to increased blood flow. This coronary reserve the ability to increase coronary blood flow several-fold above resting levels ensures that your heart can meet the demands of even intense physical or emotional stress. In healthy young people, coronary blood flow can increase by 4-5 times. Athletes may have even greater reserve. This reserve decreases with age and coronary artery disease, explaining why symptoms of inadequate blood flow, angina, typically appear during exertion when coronary reserve is exhausted. But the coronary circulation doesn't work in isolation. It's intimately connected to your body's broader cardiovascular regulatory systems. When your sympathetic nervous system activates during stress or exercise, it simultaneously increases your heart rate and contractility, increasing oxygen demand and dilates your coronary arteries, increasing oxygen supply, ensuring that the increased demands on your heart are matched by increased supply of nutrients and oxygen. This coordinated response exemplifies the integrated nature of cardiovascular control. The cellular landscape within your heart muscle is equally remarkable, a microscopic ecosystem of specialized cells working in perfect coordination. Your cardiac muscle cells, called cardiomyocytes, are specialized for endurance rather than short bursts of power. Each cell is typically 150 micrometers long and 1500 micrometers in diameter, about the width of a human hair, and contains structures optimized for continuous rhythmic contraction. Unlike skeletal muscle cells that can work anaerobically for brief periods, producing energy without oxygen, generating lactate as a byproduct, cardiac muscle cells are absolutely dependent on a continuous supply of oxygen. They have minimal capacity for anaerobic metabolism and begin to suffer damage within minutes if oxygen supply is interrupted. This absolute dependence on oxygen explains why coronary artery blockages are so dangerous without oxygen. Heart muscle cells cannot produce the energy needed for contraction or even for maintaining basic cellular integrity. Cardiac muscle cells are packed with mitochondria, the cellular power plants that convert oxygen and glucose into ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the energy currency your heart uses to contract. These mitochondria make up about 30 to 35% of the volume of each heart muscle cell, a much higher percentage than in skeletal muscle, which is about 2 to 5% mitochondria, or most other cell types. If you could look inside a cardiac muscle cell with an electron microscope, you'd see the interior densely packed with these oval organelles, each one generating ATP through oxidative phosphorylation. This reflects your heart's enormous energy demands and its complete dependence on aerobic metabolism. At rest, your heart consumes about 8 to 10% of your body's total oxygen consumption, despite representing only about 0.5% of your body weight, about 16.0 times more oxygen per gram than the average for your body. During intense exercise, when cardiac output may quadruple, myocardial oxygen consumption increases proportionately. Your heart muscle cannot build up an oxygen debt the way your skeletal muscles can. It must have a continuous supply of fresh blood to keep working. The mitochondria in cardiac muscle cells operate continuously, burning primarily fatty acids at rest. About 70% of cardiac energy comes from fat metabolism, but switching to greater use of glucose during exercise or stress. They can also metabolize lactate, ketones, and amino acids if needed, making cardiac metabolism flexible and adaptable. The heart has been called an omnivore because of its ability to use virtually any fuel substrate. The heart muscle cells are connected to each other through specialized junctions called intercalated discs, which appear as dark bands under the microscope where adjacent cells meet end to end. These discs contain three types of junctions: desmosums that mechanically link cells together and prevent them from pulling apart during contraction, gap junctions that allow electrical current and small molecules to pass directly between cells, and adherens junctions that anchor actin filaments and transmit force from cell to cell. The gap junctions are particularly important for cardiac function. They contain channels formed by proteins called connexins that create direct cytoplasmic connections between adjacent cells, allowing ions and small molecules to pass freely. This electrical coupling allows the wave of depolarization to spread from cell to cell throughout the heart, creating the coordinated contraction that makes your heartbeat so beautifully synchronized. In a sense, the gap junctions make the entire heart muscle behave as a single unit of functional syncytium, even though it's composed of billions of individual cells. These same connections also allow metabolic communication between cells, helping to coordinate the heart's energy use and ensuring that all parts of the heart muscle work together as a unified whole. Cells can share metabolites, signaling molecules, and even electrical currents through these connections, creating a level of integration that goes beyond simple mechanical linkage. Within the secret gardens of your heart, there's also a remarkable capacity for adaptation and even limited regeneration, though these processes are less robust than in some other organs. While cardiac muscle cells don't divide and multiply like some other cell types, they exit the cell cycle soon after birth and remain permanently in a non-dividing state. They can grow larger and stronger in response to increased demands, a process called cardiac hypertrophy. When you exercise regularly, your heart adapts by undergoing physiological hypertrophy. The muscle cells enlarge, develop more contractile proteins, and become stronger. The heart's chambers may also expand slightly, allowing them to hold and eject more blood with each beat. These adaptations allow an athlete's heart to pump more efficiently, achieving the same cardiac output at lower heart rates. An elite endurance athlete might have a resting heart rate in the 40s because their heart ejects so much blood with each beat that fewer beats per minute are needed. This physiological hypertrophy is generally beneficial and reversible if training stops. The heart gradually returns toward normal size. It's different from pathological hypertrophy, which occurs in response to disease states like chronic high blood pressure or valve problems. Pathological hypertrophy involves different cellular signals and can eventually lead to heart failure if the underlying problem isn't corrected. Recent research has also discovered that your heart retains a small but significant capacity to grow new blood vessels, a process called angiogenesis. When existing coronary arteries become narrowed or blocked, your heart can gradually develop collateral circulation new pathways that bypass the blocked areas and restore blood flow to threatened heart muscle. This natural bypass system represents one of your body's most remarkable self-healing capabilities. The process of collateral development is triggered by hypoxia, inadequate oxygen in heart tissue. Hypoxic cells release chemical signals, particularly a protein called vascular endothelial growth factor, or VEGF, that stimulate nearby endothelial cells to proliferate and migrate, forming new vessel sprouts. These sprouts connect to existing vessels downstream of the blockage, creating alternative pathways for blood flow. The process takes weeks to months and is enhanced by exercise, which increases the hypoxic stimulus and growth factor production. In people with gradually developing coronary artery disease, collateral circulation can become quite extensive, sometimes providing enough blood flow to prevent symptoms, even with severe blockages in major coronaries. In contrast, Sudden blockages like those that occur during heart attacks don't allow time for collateral development, which is why they're so dangerous. The coronary circulation also plays a role in your heart's remarkable sensitivity to your emotional and mental states, creating a direct link between psychology and cardiac physiology. The same stress hormones that increase your heart rate also affect your coronary arteries, though not always in intuitive ways. Sometimes emotional stress can cause coronary arteries to constrict when you might think they should dilate to meet increased cardiac demands. This paradoxical vasoconstriction can occur through several mechanisms. Catecholamines, adrenaline, and noradrenaline can activate alpha-adrenergic receptors on coronary smooth muscle, causing constriction. Stress can impair endothelial function, reducing production of nitric oxide and other vasodilators. In people with atherosclerotic plaques, stress can trigger plaque rupture, leading to acute blockage. This may explain why emotional stress can sometimes precipitate heart problems, even in people with healthy or minimally diseased coronary arteries. Conversely, positive emotions and relaxation techniques can improve coronary blood flow, helping to nourish your heart muscle more effectively. Meditation, slow breathing, and cultivation of positive emotions have all been shown to improve endothelial function and coronary vasodilation. This mind-heart connection reveals that caring for your emotional well-being is quite literally a form of cardiovascular medicine, improving the circulation within the secret gardens of your heart through effects on neural pathways, hormonal systems, and inflammatory mediators. The waste removal system within your heart is equally sophisticated, ensuring that metabolic byproducts don't accumulate to toxic levels. The coronary veins collect deoxygenated blood and metabolic waste from your heart muscle and return it to your right atrium through the coronary sinus, a specialized collecting system that empties into the right atrium from the back wall. The coronary sinus is the largest cardiac vein, receiving blood from most of the left ventricular coronary veins. Some small cardiac veins, the anterior cardiac veins, and the smallest cardiac veins, or Thebesian veins, empty directly into the cardiac chambers, rather than joining the coronary sinus. These represent minor drainage pathways, but may provide some collateral drainage if major coronary veins become blocked. The venous drainage generally parallels the arterial supply, with veins running alongside arteries through the myocardium. The coronary venous blood is more deoxygenated than venous blood from most other organs, reflecting the heart's high rate of oxygen extraction, while mixed venous blood from the body typically has about 75% oxygen saturation. Coronary sinus blood may have only 30 to 40% saturation. This means your heart extracts and uses a higher percentage of the oxygen delivered to it than most other organs do, leaving little reserve. If your heart needs more oxygen, it must increase coronary blood flow rather than simply extracting more oxygen from the existing flow. As you rest tonight, your coronary circulation settles into its quieter nighttime rhythm, paralleling the slowing of your heart rate and the decrease in cardiac workload. Your heart rate slows, perhaps from 70 beats per minute during the day to 50 or 60 at night. Each beat is gentler, less forceful, ejecting blood more softly. The reduced workload means reduced oxygen consumption, allowing your coronary arteries to decrease their flow proportionately. This is when your heart muscle can focus on repair and maintenance, replacing worn-out cellular components and strengthening the structures that will support tomorrow's activities. During sleep, your body increases production of growth hormone, which supports tissue repair throughout the body, including the heart. Inflammation decreases, oxidative stress reduces, and cellular repair processes accelerate. The coronary circulation supports all of these nighttime activities, ensuring that repair cells and molecules reach every part of the heart muscle. The secret gardens of your heart continue their quiet work throughout the night, maintaining the muscle that maintains your life. Each coronary artery, Each capillary, each mitochondrion within each heart muscle cell continues its essential contribution to the circulation that keeps you alive. These hidden landscapes work with the same faithful dedication as your heart itself, asking for nothing more than the opportunity to serve, to nourish, to sustain the rhythm that makes all other rhythms possible. In the gentle darkness of your chest, these secret gardens bloom with the quiet beauty of perfect function, each vessel a pathway through a landscape of life, each cell a small garden where the alchemy of metabolism transforms nutrients into the energy of love, of laughter, of every heartbeat that has ever moved you toward joy. The coronary circulation represents one of biology's most elegant solutions to a fundamental problem: how to nourish an organ that never rests, that works continuously from before birth until death, that must be both powerful enough to pump blood through the entire body, yet delicate enough to perform this task billions of times without wearing out. As you drift towards sleep, trust in these secret pathways, these hidden rivers that flow through the walls of your heart, bringing sustenance to every cell that works to keep you alive. They have served you faithfully since birth, and will continue their quiet ministry until your last breath, asking nothing, giving everything, sustaining the beat that makes life possible. The chemistry of circulation, flowing through your cardiovascular system at this very moment, is a liquid more complex and sophisticated than any human-created substance or fluid, that carries not just oxygen and nutrients, but chemical messages, immune defenders, repair materials, and the very essence of biological communication. Your blood is a living river that connects every cell in your body to every other cell, creating a unified organism from billions of individual cellular citizens. Blood comprises about 8% of your total body weight, roughly 5-6 liters, in an average adult, yet this relatively small volume carries an astonishing cargo of different substances. About 55% of your blood volume consists of plasma, a pale yellow liquid that's primarily water but contains over 700 different proteins, countless dissolved nutrients, hormones, waste products, and chemical messengers that coordinate the incredibly complex symphony of your physiology. Suspended within this plasma are your blood cells, each type specialized for essential functions that keep you alive and thriving. Your red blood cells, or erythrocytes, make up about 40 to 45% of your blood volume and represent one of nature's most elegant solutions to the challenge of oxygen transport. These remarkable cells are shaped like biconcave discs, thinner in the center than at the edges, a design that maximizes surface area for gas exchange while maintaining the flexibility needed to squeeze through capillaries narrower than the cells themselves. Each red blood cell is essentially a tiny bag packed with about 270 million molecules of hemoglobin, a complex protein that contains iron and has the remarkable ability to reversibly bind oxygen. The iron atoms in hemoglobin can capture oxygen molecules in your lungs, where oxygen concentration is high, then release them in your tissues where oxygen is needed. This binding and release is so precise that hemoglobin can adjust its affinity for oxygen based on local conditions, holding on to oxygen tightly in your lungs, but releasing it readily in active tissues that need it most. The chemistry of oxygen transport is beautifully sophisticated. Hemoglobin doesn't just pick up and drop off oxygen, it responds to chemical signals that indicate where oxygen is most needed. In tissues that are actively metabolizing, levels of carbon dioxide, acid, and heat increase, all of which signal hemoglobin to release more oxygen. This means your red blood cells automatically deliver more oxygen to areas that are working hardest, without any conscious direction or management. But hemoglobin's talents extend beyond oxygen transport. It also carries about 20% of the carbon dioxide produced by your tissues back to your lungs for elimination. Some carbon dioxide binds directly to hemoglobin, while some is converted to bicarbonate ions that dissolve in your plasma. This dual transport system allows your blood to efficiently remove the waste products of metabolism while simultaneously delivering the oxygen needed for cellular respiration. Your red blood cells live for about 120 days, circulating through your body approximately 400,000 times before they wear out and are recycled by your spleen and liver. Every second, about 2.4 million new red blood cells are produced in your bone marrow to replace those that have completed their service. This constant renewal ensures that your oxygen carrying capacity remains optimal throughout your life. Sharing the bloodstream with your red blood cells are your white blood cells, or leukocytes, the mobile defenders of your immune system. These cells are far less numerous than red blood cells, but their importance is immeasurable. Your white blood cells patrol your circulation like security forces, constantly surveying for threats, responding to infections, and maintaining the integrity of your internal environment. There are several different types of white blood cells, each specialized for different aspects of immune defense. Neutrophils are your first responders, quickly arriving at sites of infection or injury to engulf and destroy bacteria and other pathogens. Lymphocytes include B cells that produce antibodies and T cells that coordinate immune responses and directly attack infected cells. Monocytes circulate in your blood until they're needed, then migrate into tissues where they mature into macrophages, large cells that can engulf and digest cellular debris, dead cells, and foreign substances. Your white blood cells demonstrate the remarkable intelligence of your immune system. They can distinguish between self and non-self, with extraordinary precision, attacking foreign invaders while leaving your own healthy cells untouched. They can remember previous infections and mount faster, stronger responses when the same threats appear again. They can even communicate with each other through chemical signals, coordinating complex immune responses that involve multiple cell types working together. Also circulating in your bloodstream are platelets, tiny cell fragments that play a crucial role in hemostasis, your body's system for stopping bleeding. When a blood vessel is injured, platelets quickly adhere to the damaged area and aggregate together, forming a plug that helps seal the wound. They also release chemical signals that initiate the coagulation cascade, a complex series of chemical reactions that results in the formation of fibrin threads that reinforce the platelet plug and create a stable blood clot. The coagulation system represents one of biology's most elegant examples of positive feedback regulation. When bleeding begins, the initial clotting response triggers more clotting, which triggers even more clotting, rapidly amplifying the response until bleeding is stopped. Then, once the clot has served its purpose, another system of enzymes gradually dissolves it, allowing normal blood flow to resume and tissue repair to proceed. Your plasma carries an incredible cargo of dissolved substances that reflect the constant chemical communication occurring throughout your body. Hormones released by your endocrine glands travel through your bloodstream to their target organs, carrying messages that coordinate growth, metabolism, reproduction, and stress responses. Nutrients absorbed from your digestive system are distributed to cells throughout your body via your circulation. Waste products from cellular metabolism are collected by your blood and transported to your kidneys, lungs, and liver for elimination. The chemistry of your blood also reflects your body's remarkable ability to maintain homeostasis, keeping internal conditions stable despite constant changes in your external environment and activity levels. Your blood contains buffer systems that maintain pH within a narrow range essential for proper cellular function. It carries proteins that help regulate blood pressure and blood volume. It transports substances that maintain proper electrolyte balance and cellular hydration. One of the most fascinating aspects of blood chemistry is how it changes in response to your activities and needs. When you eat, your blood glucose levels rise, triggering the release of insulin that helps cells take up and use this fuel. When you exercise, your blood carries increased levels of stress hormones that help mobilize energy stores and prepare your body for physical demands. When you sleep, your blood chemistry shifts to support the restorative processes that occur during rest. Your blood also serves as a communication network that connects distant parts of your body in surprising ways. When your muscles produce lactate during intense exercise, your liver can convert this lactate back into glucose that can fuel other tissues. When your fat cells release stored energy, your blood carries these fatty acids to muscles that can burn them for fuel. When your brain needs glucose, your liver can produce it from other substances and release it into your bloodstream. The pH of your blood is maintained within an incredibly narrow range 7.3, 5 to 7.4, 5 . Despite constant production of acids and bases by your metabolism, this precise regulation is accomplished through multiple buffer systems in your blood, combined with the ability of your lungs to eliminate carbon dioxide, which forms acid when dissolved in blood, and your kidneys to eliminate excess acids or bases. This pH regulation is so critical that even small deviations can have serious consequences for cellular function. Your blood also carries the molecular machinery needed for tissue repair and maintenance. When you're injured, your blood delivers not just clotting factors to stop bleeding, but also growth factors that stimulate tissue regeneration, immune cells that prevent infection, and nutrients needed for healing. Your circulation serves as a highway for the constant delivery of building materials needed to maintain and repair your body's tissues. Even the temperature of your blood plays an important role in your body's function. Your blood acts as a heat distribution system, carrying warmth from metabolically active organs like your liver and muscles to cooler parts of your body. When you're hot, blood flow to your skin increases, allowing heat to be lost to the environment. When you're cold, blood flow to your extremities decreases, conserving heat for vital organs. As you rest tonight, the chemistry of your circulation adjusts to support the restorative processes of sleep. Growth hormone levels increase, promoting tissue repair and regeneration. Stress hormone levels decrease, allowing your cardiovascular system to relax and recover. Your blood continues its essential work of transport and communication, but in the gentler rhythms appropriate for rest and restoration. The chemical symphony flowing through your vessels right now represents millions of years of evolutionary refinement, creating a transport and communication system of stunning sophistication. Every molecule in your bloodstream has a purpose. Every chemical reaction serves the greater harmony of your physiological orchestra. This liquid chemistry of life flows through you like a river of possibility, carrying not just the substances needed for survival, but the very essence of biological complexity and elegance. In the quiet circulation of your resting body, chemistry becomes poetry, transport becomes communication, and the simple act of blood flowing through vessels becomes a celebration of the intricate beauty that makes life possible. The heart's electrical symphony. Deep within the muscular walls of your heart lies one of the most sophisticated electrical systems in biology, a network of specialized cells and conducting pathways that generates and coordinates the rhythmic contractions that keep you alive. This electrical system operates with a precision that would be the envy of any human engineer, creating perfectly timed waves of electrical activity that sweep through your heart muscle approximately 100,000 times each day, with rarely a missed beat. The story of your heart's electrical system begins with a small cluster of cells in your right atrium called the sinoatrial node, or SA node. This remarkable structure, no larger than a grain of rice, serves as your heart's natural pacemaker. The cells within the SA node have a unique property. They spontaneously generate electrical impulses at regular intervals, creating the fundamental rhythm of your existence without requiring any external stimulus or conscious control. These pacemaker cells are remarkable for their autonomy. They contain specialized ion channels, molecular gates, in their cell membranes that allow sodium, potassium, and calcium ions to flow in and out of the cells in precisely timed sequences. This creates a slow, steady depolarization that builds up like water filling a basin until it reaches a threshold that triggers an action potential the electrical signal that will ultimately cause your heart to beat. What makes this process even more fascinating is that these cells never truly rest. While other cells in your body maintain a stable electrical charge when inactive, pacemaker cells continuously leak sodium ions inward, creating a gradual increase in electrical potential that inevitably leads to the next heartbeat. This is why your heart can continue beating even if it's removed from your body. The intrinsic electrical activity of the SA node doesn't depend on outside signals. From the SA node, electrical impulses spread outward through both atria like ripples spreading across a calm pond. This wave of depolarization causes the atrial muscle cells to contract in a coordinated fashion, pushing blood from the atria into the ventricles. The electrical impulse travels through the atrial muscle at about 1 meter per second fast enough to ensure that both atria contract almost simultaneously. The electrical wave eventually reaches the atrioventricular node, or AV node, located at the junction between the atria and ventricles. The AV node serves as both a relay station and a critical delay system. It slows the electrical impulse for about 0.1 seconds, just long enough to allow the atria to finish emptying blood into the ventricles before ventricular contraction begins. Without this delay, the atria and ventricles might contract simultaneously, dramatically reducing the efficiency of your heart's pumping action. The AV node also serves as a backup pacemaker. If the SA node fails, or if the electrical connection between the SA node and AV node is blocked, the AV node can take over pacemaker duties, generating impulses at about 49 to 60 beats per minute slower than the SA node's normal rate, but fast enough to maintain circulation in an emergency. From the AV node, the electrical impulse enters the bundle of his specialized conducting pathway that penetrates the fibrous barrier between the atria and ventricles. This bundle quickly divides into right and left bundle branches that travel down either side of the interventricular septum, the muscular wall that separates the right and left ventricles. These bundle branches then spread out into an intricate network of smaller fibers called Purkinje fibers, which extend throughout both ventricles like the roots of a tree spreading through soil. The Purkinje fibers conduct electrical impulses at remarkable speed, up to 4 meters per second, ensuring that the electrical wave reaches all parts of both ventricles almost simultaneously. This rapid, coordinated spread of electrical activity causes both ventricles to contract from the bottom up, squeezing blood toward the exit valves in the most efficient possible pattern. The timing is so precise that the entire ventricular contraction, involving millions of individual muscle cells, occurs within about 0.08 seconds. The electrical properties of cardiac muscle cells are perfectly adapted for this coordinated contraction. Unlike skeletal muscle cells that contract briefly and then relax, cardiac muscle cells have a prolonged action potential that keeps them contracted for about 0.25 seconds. This extended contraction ensures that the ventricles have enough time to empty completely before relaxing to refill with blood. The electrical system of your heart is also remarkably adaptable, responding to your body's changing needs through the influence of your autonomic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system can speed up the SA node's firing rate and increase the force of cardiac contractions when you need more blood flow during exercise or stress. Your parasympathetic nervous system, particularly through the vagus nerve, can slow the heart rate during rest and relaxation. This nervous system influence explains why your heart rate changes so quickly in response to different situations. When you're startled, your sympathetic nervous system instantly increases your heart rate. When you take a deep breath and relax, your parasympathetic nervous system slows it back down. These changes can occur within just a few heartbeats, demonstrating the exquisite sensitivity of your heart's electrical system to neural input. The electrical activity of your heart creates electromagnetic fields that extend beyond your body and can be detected by sensitive instruments. This is the principle behind electrocardiography, ECG or EKG, which records the electrical signals produced by your heart from electrodes placed on your skin. The characteristic waves of the ECG trace represent different phases of electrical activity. The P wave shows atrial depolarization. The QRS complex represents ventricular depolarization, and the T wave reflects ventricular repolarization. But your heart's electrical system influences more than just cardiac function. Recent research has shown that the heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field produced by any organ in your body, about 60 times stronger than the field generated by your brain. This cardiac electromagnetic field extends several feet beyond your physical body and may play a role in the subtle ways that people influence each other's emotional and physiological states when they're in close proximity. Some studies suggest that when people are in states of coherent heart rhythm, the smooth, ordered patterns that occur during feelings of appreciation, compassion, and love, their heart's electromagnetic field becomes more organized and may positively influence the autonomic nervous systems of people nearby. This provides a potential biological basis for phenomena like emotional contagion and the calming influence that some people seem to have on others. The electrical system of your heart also demonstrates remarkable plasticity and adaptability. Regular exercise can lead to beneficial changes in heart rate variability and electrical conduction, while chronic stress can have negative effects on cardiac electrical patterns. The heart's electrical system is sensitive to factors like sleep quality, emotional states, breathing patterns, and even thoughts and attitudes. This sensitivity extends to the molecular level, where the ion channels that generate electrical activity can be influenced by hormones, neurotransmitters, and other chemical messengers. The same stress hormones that increase your heart rate also modify the electrical properties of individual cardiac cells, while relaxation-promoting chemicals enhance the stability and coherence of electrical conduction. Your heart's electrical system also has built-in backup systems and redundancies that protect against failure. If the primary pacemaker fails, secondary pacemakers in the AV node can take over. If one bundle branch becomes blocked, the other can often compensate. If part of the conducting system is damaged, new electrical pathways can sometimes develop to bypass the damaged areas. As you settle into rest tonight, your heart's electrical system shifts into its nighttime configuration. The SA node slows its firing rate, allowing longer intervals between heartbeats. The influence of your parasympathetic nervous system increases, promoting the slower, more variable heart rate patterns associated with rest and recovery. Your heart rate variability typically increases during sleep, reflecting the healthy flexibility of your cardiac electrical system. Throughout the night, this electrical symphony will continue its performance, generating the precise patterns of electrical activity that coordinate your heartbeat with perfect timing. Each impulse that begins in your SA node will travel its appointed pathway, triggering exactly the right muscle contractions at exactly the right time to maintain your circulation while you sleep. The electrical activity of your heart represents one of biology's most elegant examples of self-organization and precise timing. Without any conscious control or external direction, your heart's electrical system maintains the rhythm that sustains your life, beat by beat, hour by hour, year by year. It's a biological symphony that plays continuously in the concert hall of your chest, a masterpiece of electrical engineering that makes all of life's other symphonies possible. In the gentle darkness of your heart, electrical impulses dance through specialized pathways like lightning through storm clouds, each flash of bioelectricity, a small miracle that keeps the rhythm of life flowing through your entire being. This is the electrical poetry of existence, written in the language of ions and action potentials, performed by the most dedicated musicians in your personal orchestra, the specialized cells that keep your heart beating with perfect time. The heart's emotional landscape. Your heart is far more than a simple mechanical pumpet. It's an exquisitely sensitive organ that responds to every nuance of your emotional life with remarkable precision and eloquence. In the intimate space between your emotions and your cardiovascular system lies one of the most profound connections in human biology, a relationship so fundamental that it has shaped how we understand and express the deepest aspects of human experience. When you feel a surge of love, gratitude, or compassion, your heart doesn't just beat, it literally changes its rhythm in ways that can be measured and observed. The pattern of time intervals between successive heartbeats shifts from irregular and chaotic to smooth and coherent, creating what researchers call cardiac coherence. This isn't just a metaphor or poetic description, it's a measurable physiological state where your heart rhythm becomes as organized and beautiful as a sine wave. This coherent heart rhythm state has profound effects throughout your body and mind. When your heart rhythm is coherent, it sends organized signals to your brain that promote mental clarity, emotional stability, and optimal cognitive function. Your nervous system interprets these rhythmic signals from your heart as an indication that all is well, allowing your body's stress responses to relax and your mind to enter states of enhanced creativity and insight. The mechanism behind this heart-emotion connection involves the intricate dance between your heart and your autonomic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system, which activates during stress and excitement, can make your heart rhythm irregular and chaotic. Your parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes rest and restoration, helps create more organized, coherent heart rhythms. But emotions add another layer of complexity to this relationship, with positive emotions enhancing coherence even during states of high activation. When you experience frustration, anxiety, or anger, your heart rhythm typically becomes erratic and disorganized, creating what looks like a jagged, irregular pattern when measured. This incoherent heart rhythm sends signals to your brain that something is wrong, triggering stress responses that can affect your thinking, feeling, and behavior. The heart and mind become locked in a feedback loop where emotional upset creates cardiac incoherence, which in turn reinforces feelings of stress and emotional instability. But the relationship flows in both directions. Just as emotions affect heart rhythm can influence emotions. When you consciously shift into coherent heart rhythm patterns through techniques like focused breathing or intentionally generating feelings of appreciation, you can literally change your emotional state from the inside out. This is why many meditation and stress reduction practices intuitively focus on the heart area and involve specific breathing patterns that enhance cardiac coherence. Your heart contains its own nervous system, sometimes called the heart brain, consisting of more than 40,000 neurons that can process information and make decisions independently of your brain. This cardiac nervous system receives and integrates emotional and physiological information, then influences your heart rhythm and sends signals back to your brain that can affect your perceptions, emotions, and cognitive function. This heart brain explains the biological basis for gut feelings and heartfelt intuitions. When you sense that something is right or wrong before you can rationally explain why, when you feel drawn to someone or wary of a situation for reasons you can't articulate, your heart's nervous system may be processing subtle information and communicating its assessment through changes in heart rhythm and other physiological signals. The electromagnetic field generated by your heart, the strongest produced by any organ in your body, may also play a role in emotional communication and social connection. This field extends several feet beyond your physical body and changes in response to your emotional states. When you're in coherent emotional states, your heart's electromagnetic field becomes more organized and stable, potentially influencing the autonomic nervous systems of people around you. This may explain why some people seem to have a naturally calming presence while others create feelings of unease, even when no words are spoken. The electromagnetic signature of your emotional state as expressed through your heart's field may be unconsciously perceived by others and influence their own autonomic nervous system responses. In this sense, emotional states may be literally contagious through subtle energetic communication between hearts. The heart-emotion connection is so fundamental that it appears in the language and traditions of virtually every human culture. We speak of heartbreak and heartache, of having a heart of gold or a heart of stone, of matters of the heart and following our hearts. While these expressions might seem purely metaphorical, they reflect an intuitive understanding of the deep connection between cardiovascular function and emotional experience. Modern research is validating many of these traditional insights. Studies have shown that sustained positive emotions like love, compassion, and gratitude produce measurable improvements in heart rate variability, the healthy variation in time between heartbeats that indicates a responsive, adaptable cardiovascular system. Chronic negative emotions, particularly hostility and cynicism, are associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease and reduced heart rate variability. The practice of focusing attention on your heart area while consciously generating positive emotions has been shown to increase cardiac coherence, reduce stress hormones, improve immune function, and enhance overall well-being. This suggests that caring for your emotional health is quite literally a form of cardiovascular medicine, and that practices that enhance positive emotions are forms of heart-healthy lifestyle choices. Your heart also responds to the emotional climate around you. When you're surrounded by people experiencing positive emotions, your heart rhythm tends to become more coherent. When you're in environments filled with stress, conflict, or negative emotions, your heart rhythm often becomes more chaotic. This demonstrates how your heart serves as a sensitive barometer of both your internal emotional state and the emotional atmosphere of your environment. The timing of emotional experiences also affects how your heart responds. Brief moments of intense emotion create different cardiovascular patterns than sustained emotional states. Sudden emotional shocks can disrupt heart rhythm so dramatically that they occasionally trigger serious cardiac events, while gradually building emotional experiences allow your heart to adapt more smoothly. Your heart even responds to the emotional content of your thoughts and mental imagery. When you recall happy memories or imagine positive future scenarios, your heart rhythm tends to become more coherent. When you dwell on negative memories or worry about potential problems, your heart rhythm typically becomes more chaotic. This suggests that your daily mental habits, the kinds of thoughts you regularly think, and the internal emotional climate you maintain have direct effects on your cardiovascular health. Sleep quality is intimately connected to your heart's emotional responsiveness. When you're well rested, your heart shows greater coherence and resilience in response to emotional challenges. When you're sleep deprived, your heart's ability to maintain stable rhythms in the face of emotional stress is compromised. This creates another feedback loop where poor sleep affects emotional regulation, which affects heart health, which can further impact sleep quality. The developmental aspects of heart-emotion connections are equally fascinating. Infants' heart rhythms are highly sensitive to their caregivers' emotional states, suggesting that emotional co-regulation between parent and child occurs at the level of cardiovascular synchronization. Children who experience secure, loving relationships develop more stable heart rate variability patterns, while those who experience chronic stress or trauma may show altered cardiac patterns that persist into adulthood. As we age, the heart-emotion connection continues to evolve. Older adults who maintain active emotional lives and social connections often show better preservation of healthy heart rate variability compared to those who become isolated or emotionally withdrawn. This suggests that staying emotionally engaged and maintaining meaningful relationships may be important factors in cardiovascular aging. The heart's emotional landscape is also influenced by seasonal and daily rhythms. Many people experience changes in mood and heart rate variability with changing seasons, suggesting that your heart emotion system is synchronized with natural light-dark cycles and seasonal patterns. Similarly, your heart's emotional responsiveness varies throughout the day, typically showing greater coherence capacity during certain times and being more vulnerable to emotional disturbance during others. As you prepare for sleep tonight, your heart's emotional landscape shifts into its nighttime configuration. The emotional processing that occurs during sleep helps restore balance to your heart emotion system, allowing you to wake with greater emotional resilience and cardiac coherence capacity. Dreams may serve as a safe space where your heart can process emotional experiences without the physiological stress of waking emotional activation. Your heart right now is responding to the gentle, peaceful emotions induced by this relaxing journey through its own mysteries. As you learn about your heart's remarkable capabilities, as you appreciate the elegant engineering of your cardiovascular system, your heart itself is responding to these positive emotions with increased coherence and stability. In the quiet sanctuary of your chest, your heart beats not just with mechanical precision, but with emotional intelligence, responding to every subtle shift in your internal weather with exquisite sensitivity. It is both the recipient and the generator of your emotional experience, creating a feedback system where feelings and physiology dance together in the intimate choreography of being fully, beautifully human. Tonight, as your heart settles into the peaceful rhythms of rest, it carries within its chambers not just blood and oxygen, but the emotional essence of who you are, your capacity for love, your memories of joy, your hopes for tomorrow, your deepest connections to others. This is the true landscape of your heart, not just a muscular pump, but the physical home of your emotional life, beating with the rhythm of everything that makes you authentically, wonderfully you. The heart in harmony. As we near the end of our gentle journey through the landscapes of your heart, it's time to step back and appreciate how all the systems we've explored work together in perfect harmony. Your heart is not a collection of separate parts, but a unified whole and orchestra where every component plays its part in creating the symphony of circulation that sustains your life. The physical structure of your heart, with its 4 chambers, 4 valves, and muscular walls, provides the architectural foundation for efficient blood flow. But this structure comes alive through the electrical system that coordinates contractions, the coronary circulation that nourishes the heart muscle itself, the nervous system connections that allow your heart to respond to your body's changing needs, and the chemical signals that fine-tune every aspect of cardiovascular function. Your heart exists in constant communication with every other system in your body. It receives information from your brain about your emotional state, your stress level, and your conscious intentions. It responds to hormonal messages from your endocrine system that regulate everything from metabolism to reproductive cycles. It adjusts its function based on feedback from your kidneys about blood volume and pressure, from your lungs about oxygen and carbon dioxide levels, and from your muscles about their need for increased blood flow during activity. This integration extends beyond your individual body to encompass your relationships with others and your environment. Your heart rhythm synchronizes subtly with those of people you care about when you're in close proximity. It responds to the changing seasons, to the rhythm of day and night, to the phases of the moon. Your heart connects you not just to your own biology, but to the larger rhythms of the natural world. The wisdom of your heart is both ancient and constantly renewed. The basic pattern of cardiac development and function has been refined over hundreds of millions of years of evolution, yet your individual heart adapts and changes throughout your lifetime. The heart that beats in your chest right now has been shaped by every experience you've had, every emotion you've felt, every physical challenge you've faced. Your heart demonstrates remarkable resilience and adaptability. It can strengthen itself in response to regular exercise, develop new blood vessels to bypass blocked arteries, and adjust its rhythm to accommodate everything from the demands of athletic performance to the quiet needs of deep sleep. This adaptability allows your heart to serve you faithfully through all the changes and challenges of a human lifetime. The care of your heart involves far more than just avoiding obviously harmful behaviors. While factors like diet, exercise, and smoking cessation are certainly important, your heart's health is also profoundly influenced by your stress levels, your emotional patterns, your sleep quality, your social connections, and your sense of meaning and purpose in life. Chronic stress, particularly the kind that comes from feeling helpless or out of control, can have devastating effects on cardiovascular health. Conversely, practices that promote emotional well-being, meditation, gratitude, forgiveness, acts of kindness have measurable benefits for heart health that extend far beyond their psychological effects. Your heart thrives on regularity and rhythm, going to bed at consistent times, eating meals at regular intervals, maintaining steady patterns of physical activity, and creating reliable routines for stress management all support optimal cardiac function. Your heart is a creature of rhythm, and it functions best when embedded in the larger rhythms of a well-structured life. Social connection is as important to your heart as physical exercise. People with strong social ties have significantly lower rates of cardiovascular disease, while isolation and loneliness are risk factors comparable to smoking or high blood pressure. Your heart literally needs love, both giving it and receiving it, to function at its best. The practice of heart-focused breathing, consciously slowing and deepening your breath while focusing attention on your heart area, is one of the most accessible ways to support cardiac coherence and overall cardiovascular health. This simple practice can shift your heart rhythm toward more coherent patterns, activate your parasympathetic nervous system, and create a physiological state that supports both physical health and emotional well-being. Your heart also benefits from variety and challenge. Like any muscle, it grows stronger when appropriately stressed through activities that increase heart rate and demand greater cardiac output. But this stress must be balanced with adequate rest and recovery. Your heart needs both the stimulation of activity and the restoration of rest to maintain optimal function. The foods you choose to nourish your body become the raw materials from which your heart builds and maintains itself. A diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and healthy fats provides the nutrients your heart muscle needs to function optimally, while also supporting the health of your blood vessels and the quality of your blood. What you eat literally becomes part of your heart. Sleep is when your heart does much of its maintenance and repair work. During sleep, your heart rate slows, your blood pressure decreases, and your cardiovascular system shifts into recovery mode. Poor sleep quality or insufficient sleep disrupts these restorative processes and can have significant negative effects on cardiovascular health over time. The thoughts you think and the emotions you regularly experience create the internal climate in which your heart must function. Habitual patterns of worry, anger, or negativity create a biochemical environment that challenges your cardiovascular system, while regular practices of gratitude, compassion, and appreciation create conditions that support optimal heart health. Your heart's health is also connected to your sense of purpose and meaning in life. People who feel that their lives have direction and significance tend to have better cardiovascular outcomes than those who feel aimless or meaningless. Your heart, it seems, beats stronger when it's beating for something greater than mere survival. The practice of forgiveness, both of others and of yourself, has measurable positive effects on heart health. Carrying grudges and resentments creates chronic stress that damages cardiovascular function, while the practice of letting go and moving forward supports both emotional and physical healing. Regular exposure to nature and natural beauty also supports heart health in ways that go beyond the obvious benefits of outdoor physical activity. Something about connection with natural environments seems to promote cardiac coherence and cardiovascular well-being, perhaps by reconnecting us with the larger rhythms of the living world of which we are part. As you continue through life, your relationship with your heart will evolve. The heart of childhood beats with the rapid rhythms of growth and discovery. The heart of young adulthood pulses with the intense emotions of first love, career ambitions, and identity formation. The heart of middle age settles into steadier rhythms while facing the challenges of responsibility and the first hints of mortality. The heart of older age beats with the wisdom of experience and the poignant beauty of time's passage. Each stage brings its own opportunities for cardiovascular health and its own challenges. The key is to remain conscious of your heart's needs throughout your life, adapting your self-care practices as your circumstances change, while maintaining the fundamental elements that support cardiac well-being: regular movement, adequate rest, emotional balance, social connection, and a sense of meaning and purpose. Your heart right now, beating steadily in your chest as you listen to these words, is the same heart that will carry you through all of tomorrow's adventures. It has been your faithful companion since before you were born, and it will remain with you until your very last breath. This remarkable organ asks for so little: just oxygen, nutrients, and the basic conditions needed to maintain its rhythm, yet it gives you everything: the circulation that makes life possible, the capacity to love and be loved, the physical foundation for every moment of joy, wonder, and connection you will ever experience. In the gentle darkness of your chest, your heart continues its eternal song, a rhythm that connects you to every other heart that has ever beaten, every other life that has ever been lived. You are part of an ancient community of hearts, all sharing the same fundamental rhythm, all participating in the same miraculous process of pumping life through living bodies. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, you can rest in the knowledge that your heart will continue its faithful work through the quiet hours ahead. It will beat approximately 28,000 times before you wake, each beat a small prayer of gratitude for the gift of being alive, each rhythm a gentle lullaby sung by the most devoted musician in your personal orchestra. Close your eyes now and feel your heart beating. Place your hand over your chest if you'd like, and sense the gentle rhythm that has been with you since the very beginning. This is the sound of your life, the drum that keeps time for all your other rhythms, the steady bass note underneath the melody of your existence. Your heart knows how to rest, just as it knows how to work. It knows how to slow its rhythm for sleep, how to maintain your circulation through the night, how to prepare for tomorrow's awakening. Trust in this ancient wisdom, this biological intelligence that has sustained life for millions of years. In the quiet sanctuary of your chest, your heart beats on, carrying within its chambers not just blood and nutrients, but love itself, your love for others, their love for you, and the love that flows through the very fabric of existence. This is the final mystery of your heart. It is both utterly physical and completely metaphysical, both a mechanical pump and the seat of everything that makes life worth living. Your heart is a universe contained within your chest, a cosmos of circulation that makes all other experiences possible. As you drift towards sleep, let its gentle rhythm carry you into the peaceful depths of rest, where your heart will continue its eternal work, beating with the rhythm of life itself, keeping perfect time in the concert hall of your being. Good night, and may your heart beat strong and steady through all the nights and days to come, carrying you forward on the river of life with grace, courage, and endless possibility. Sleep well, dear dreamer. Your heart will keep watch while you rest.